Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of What If Naruto Was Neglected Heir of Uzumaki Clan. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe as it inspires me to make more such videos. So let's get started. Chapter 16. Naruto silently walked through the dark passage within the earth itself. The passage was dimly lit with fading candles and breathed out a cold breath as the redhead walked through. One would be scared to walk over the place because of the dangerous feeling it gave off. This feeling was brought on by the presence of a dangerous and eternal being trapped within the underground castle. The Uzumaki clan head did not fear anything about the atmosphere. It wasn't his first time being here, and danger seemed to make his blood boil to the point of madness. Of course, he would never let that show. He rarely showed his excitement. Perhaps it was because he didn't fight to enjoy the battle but to win. This secret castle was supposed to be something that even the Hokage should not know, but Minato knew because he was a member of the Uzumaki clan. For someone to discover it, it must mean that they have been digging for some time. Yoshino had done well to preserve it, even he did not know about it until the senile old woman was ready to kick the bucket. It was damn infuriating to know that someone could bypass the security that had been put in place. Blood was the first requirement to gain entry. But not just any blood. First, it had to be Uzumaki blood, and secondly, it had to be of a clan head. Of course, the bypassed barriers were just the first things. The real door to the secrets could not be opened, not by Minato, not by his mother, but only by Uzumaki Naruto. It was unlikely that someone had gotten his blood. He made sure he never bleed during battle. There were times he did bleed, but no one should be in possession of his blood. No one, not even Izumi or Itachi. That left one option: someone had gotten hold of either his mother's or Yoshino's blood. As it stood, only 3 people could enter the outer passages, and for someone to have entered, it violated the privacy that he had been trying by all means to keep protected from everyone. His mother's blood was something else though. Could someone have managed to gain Yoshino's blood before she died? Ridiculous. That woman was murderously personal when it came to her blood, and she made sure that she had seals active to protect her blood. His blood was not protected, but what could have happened? Naruto came to a halt when he saw 2 shinobi standing over a visible barrier. He frowned at how far they had gotten. There were many barriers around the place, and it would take a lot for one to actually reach the center of the underground castle. Root, Naruto muttered quietly. There was no emotion in his tone or his face. His eyes could not be seen in the dimly lit passage. I was wondering why Danzo was so quiet these days. Who could have thought that he would have been hunting down for this place? How did you know? The 2 masked nins turned around to face the redhead, but only of them responded. We have our ways, the man responded with a flat tone. You were slow in coming here. We were expecting your reaction to be a lot quicker than this. Naruto tilted his head to the side. Interesting, the redhead said. You knew you couldn't get through all the barriers without the help of an Uzumaki. So now, I can safely assume that you have been waiting for me to get here so that you can use me. Certainly, none of the barriers around here affected him. Since he was the Uzumaki clan head, he could just walk through the place without anything setting off. But if an intruder does set foot in this place, they can be quickly noted, and the alarms will go off, alerting his people. He was basically a walking key. You're not as dumb as I thought, one of the root shinobi stated monotonously. But while it is surprising, it doesn't change anything. Naruto was here, and that was their ticket to going further into the passages. For now they could not proceed any further than a couple of more feet. It was just impossible, as one person was the key. It wasn't that the redhead had the key with him, he was the key. They'd studied the seals around the Uzumaki clan compound and had an idea of how things worked around the place. The compound was a fortress. When the security seals were put in place, no one could enter. Even if you did enter, you would likely end up trapped in there. Naruto fully opened his eyes as he spoke. I feel like I have just walked into a trap in my own house. This is really surprising. I never thought that anyone outside the Uzumaki would be skilled enough to get this far. No, it is impossible. Minato can, but Jiraiya cannot. I am missing something here. But what? The thought that there could be a traitor within the Uzumaki clan had never crossed his mind. That was just something that even the senile Yoshino deemed to be impossible. If Yoshino said so, then it had to be true. There was something important that he was missing. Who knows? One of the root responded flatly. That is something you will have to figure out. Well, if you do make it here with your mind fully operational as it is now. Naruto stared for a moment. He was slightly amused. They did not plan to kill him if they could. They just wanted to weaken his mind. With a weakened mind, he would be easy to control, and wouldn't make a big deal out of this matter. But as it stands, he would surely do something about this. Danzo was trespassing in his property. He might not tell everyone about it, because the secret would be out. Perhaps the War Hawk was banking on that fact. He would like to have this dealt with in secret just so it doesn't raise security concerns for the village. It would certainly cause so much trouble with the clan heads if it becomes known that they were keeping the Kyuubi in this place. Konoha would certainly panic if it knew that the beast that had nearly destroyed it was lying deep within its outskirts, and the clan would be subject to some negative opinions. They had worked hard to get that over with in the past years. To be faced with it again would prove to be a problem that Naruto would not care enough to deal with. He knew it would be a problem, but he wasn't sure that he would be willing to solve it. He would rather just avoid causing a situation that would bring that kind of a problem. Perhaps the plan to kill Danzo should have been ignited long ago. This is turning into a troublesome situation, Naruto muttered with a shake of his head. He took out his sword, but did not take a step forward. A better way to solve this would be to just kill both of you. Fu narrowed his eyes slightly. It was as expected. This was his holy place, and he was the one with the intent to attack them, but he was not making a move. Intel had suggested that when dealing with unknown forces, the redhead didn't blindly jump into battle. Fu had not expected anything less. It would have made things much simpler if he had just rushed at them. Naruto didn't know anything about them, and that meant that they had the element of surprise. He knew all that he needed to know about the redhead. He could make this work. It was even more advantageous to him since the space around here accommodated him to make the preparations he needed. He was not going to risk trying to take control over the redhead. He was dealing with an Uzumaki here. It was possible that he would never get his body back, and his mind would be trapped away in some hole somewhere. Torum did hand seals and held his hands just above his mouth before exhaling a large dark purple smoke and covered the entire passage. It was poison, but he was certain that Naruto did not know about it. He could just make a guess since he wasn't stupid. The poison rushed towards the Uzumaki, clouding his view of the enemies before him. Naruto responded by releasing scorching flames from his mouth. The flames were made to match the smoke, and when the two jutsus collided, there was a controlled explosion, but a bad smell that washed over the place. The redhead inhaled the smell and had to cover his nose and mouth to avoid breathing in more of the smell. Fu flashed on Naruto's right hand, holding out his tanto. He did a quick swing towards the redhead's right shoulder. Naruto responded in reflex by blocking the swing with his own sword. His opponent didn't seem surprised that the redhead had blocked his swing. Torum also flashed out of nowhere and on Naruto's left-hand side. The redhead was also able to quickly react to the attack. He caught the hand that was snaking towards the side of his chest. Naruto's eyes turned cold when Torum's hand turned purple and some insects started to crawl on his hand. When one bit him, he released intense flames through his left hand, burning the bugs and everything else on the side, even Torum. Well, it appeared to be him, but he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Fu flashed away, while Naruto took a moment to stare into his left hand. There was something very wrong here. He could not see because of the bandages around it, but he didn't focus on it for too long as he still had enemies to deal with. We can confirm that the Kyuubi is indeed in this place, and so other things. But what interests Danzo-sama is the Kyuubi. It was certain that we would never actually take it, and the intention wasn't to do that but to just confirm before making a decisive move. Fu sped off after saying those words. Naruto frowned. It would be a problem if Danzo brought this to other clan heads. He didn't put it past the war hawk to let the news reach the villagers that the QB was resting freely in the outskirts of the village. If the villagers lived in fear, he would be forced to do something, even Minato would be backed against a corner. It was seriously time for damage control. He would need to be firm about it even. If things didn't go well, he would have to just kill Danzo. That would prove problematic, but he could do it. With Itachi by his side, nothing was impossible. Danzo wasn't even that mighty of a warrior that he'd need to fear his power. His many lackeys were the problem. Naruto put away his sword and walked further into the depths of the underground castle. The redhead walked deeper into the underground. The passage thinned as the small light became visible at the end of the tunnel. Naruto stopped at the edge of the tunnel and looked down at the large space below that was formulated with the help of Fuinjutsu. Inside the hole Naruto was staring at, there was a sizable version of the QB lying down, with its head resting on its palm. The area around it was a virtual world that had trees and grasses, but those things did not exist in reality. It was created to give the Bajoa something to think about, and give it a feeling that it was still in this world. It was technically a large-scale seal because the QB could not leave the place. It was restricted there by the seal that had reduced its size so that it would be easy to have it remain here. Naruto had only been here once or twice. He wasn't a fan of such a place. Rare visits also placed less suspicion on the place. They didn't even put guards in the place just to make it look as if they didn't have anything to protect. A visit from my new warden, Kurama started without even lifting up his head. He could sense the redhead, who had an indifferent feeling towards him. I have to say that I am blessed. This is your third visit. Your predecessors never bothered. Naruto took his time before formulating a response. He could say perhaps it was a little sad that the Bajoa was forced to settle in here. But if they didn't do that, it would be chased by humans all over, and who knew, maybe it would go on a rampage to destroy all humans. My visit this time was brought by a few nuisances trespassing. The redhead responded to the Bajoa in a calm tone. We have actually done good for you. Within my mother's seal, you were forever bound in a painful way. Inside here, you can relax and breathe your own air without human thoughts reaching you. I'd say you are in peace here. Peace in a prison? Kurama asked, almost amused. The only good thing here is that I don't have to worry about humans. But I have still been robbed of the sun. I have to say, I have missed it. The Bajoa put in the words calmly. You want me to show you the sun? Naruto mused loudly. I will see what will happen in the next couple of years. Maybe it can happen. I don't really fear what you can do, nor do I care about the things you have done. To me, you're just a biju I was tasked to keep guard. Kurama laughed. It was interesting to hear. The redhead meant what he was saying. He was just indifferent after all. Kushina would have been saying something along the lines of keeping him at bay because he was dangerous, and could not be left alone to roam free. Before he could say anything else, Naruto was already turning away. Kurama didn't speak, he merely closed his eyes as he thought of ways to free himself. The damn Uzumakis had made one tough seal, but a mere seal could not hold him forever. The fact that Naruto didn't come here often meant he could get to work on weakening the seal without anyone noticing. He would free himself. Uzumaki compound. Itachi was staring at Naruto with a lot of questions running through his head. He didn't know whether to voice them or not. He understood that there were things such as clan secrets, and he could not expect Naruto to tell him any of those. But this appeared to be something serious. It was definitely serious if he had heard Azumi correctly. He wished she had been willing to go into details, but she did not say anything. Naruto had returned far quicker than expected, and unsurprisingly, his expression was just blank. Itachi could not tell what the redhead was thinking. There wasn't even an inch of his expression that told him whether it had been good or bad. It was just nothing, and to know, he would have to wait for the redhead to open his mouth. He knew Naruto well enough to know he would not lie. The redhead was many things, but he was not a liar. He would rather conceal the truth, and that was what Itachi expected from the redhead. Naruto sat down on the seat he had vacated earlier and stared into the empty space ahead of him. It was most troubling to be in this situation. Itachi, we will discuss Danzo in a couple of hours. I'm sure in a few moments. I will have more than one reason to want him dead. Itachi stared for a few moments. He was being dismissed, but he was certain that it was Danzo, or at least his root, which had done the trespassing. The only reason Naruto would want the man to die would be because of that. Before Itachi could say anything, Naruto was speaking once again. Azumi, call my mother. I wish to speak to her now. Azumi nodded and went on to do what Naruto wished of her. This must be something serious. Then again, if it is something that includes the QB, one cannot doubt that it is something serious. Danzo has always been after the QB. He has always been voicing his thoughts on the matter that the QB's power should be used for Konoha's benefit, and in a matter such as this, he will have more reasons to do so, Itachi stated in a firm tone. A problem, Naruto muttered. But there is no problem that cannot be solved. It is either the easy way or the hard way. Either way, the problem can get solved. Consequences might be there, but if one is prepared to deal with them, they can be handled. It is a matter of calculating things right, and having the courage to do things that others are not willing to do. Perhaps he was being arrogant to say that everything could be solved, but he was certain that this was a matter that he could handle. It was within the realm of possibilities, and unless Danzo runs a campaign against him with the villagers and clan heads, everything could be solved. I'm willing to do anything for the sake of Konoha. I will warn you though, you may not care about the backlash of the actions you take, there are still people who will be affected by them. In whatever you do, be cautious. Itachi said those words and stood up. He could be somewhere at this time. Naruto would no doubt call him after handling his meetings. He was sure that the redhead would need him. Well, he had a bone to pick with the war hawk. There were unresolved issues that needed to be tackled. On his way out, Itachi came across Kushina. He greeted the woman before disappearing. Kushina sat down in front of Naruto with Azumi sitting beside her on her right side. Azumi had been strangely firm on her appearing before her son. If anything, it seemed as if her son was summoning her. What is it, Naruto? Naruto stared at the space between him and his mother. The expression on his face didn't reveal anything. It was still expressionless. When he spoke, his tone didn't have any firmness in it, it was just calm. Danzo has discovered the underneath of the masked temple. It is possible that by now he is forcing a council meeting, and I will be called soon enough, the redhead stated to his mother. Azumi seemed surprised that Danzo would take that path. She could never reach that conclusion. Possibly because she didn't know Danzo as much as Naruto does know the war hawk. Besides, she didn't think in the same way as Naruto does. Naruto wasn't the one who thought in the way that could be called shrewd and calculatedly. The clan head thinking this far meant this was a major problem that needed to be dealt with. But she supposed this was a matter of importance and could bring serious consequences to the clan. Kushina frowned in thought. She didn't think that this was going to happen soon. We agreed with the council that the QB was our responsibility and anything happening on its part would be liable to us. Do you think that they will push for us to do anything different? Naruto nodded. If Danzo brings forth a reasonable argument. The situation outside the village doesn't favor us at the moment. We might be facing up to 4 Bujis and the village doesn't have a jinchuriki, it will be seen as a disadvantage. With the loss of the sealing core, I can't put any logical argument they will be forced to accept or believe. This was indeed a problem. The reason they had not sealed the Biju was because they didn't want anyone in the clan suffering from the fate of being a jinchuriki. Given what the QB did and the resentment towards it, it was obvious that anyone holding it would be subject to underserved hatred. Kushina had the choice to either allow the Bajor to be sealed back in her or Naruto. He had still been young enough, but they had the choice with Yoshino to seal the Bajoa in something temporal with its power separated, while they developed something that could hold the Bajoa. Of course, the Bajoa sealed in the underground of the masked temple was only half, and the other half was somewhere else. They could not have sealed the Bajoa as it was in something that wasn't a jinchuriki. The beast was too powerful for that. What then? Kushina asked calmly. I don't know. I will decide after hearing where the wind is blowing. We still have our hold over the major players, so they won't do anything drastic, Naruto responded calmly. I just wanted to inform you of this, so that you can be prepared for anything. But for now, I won't agree to anything that I don't like. Well, that will depend on how I can manage things. I see. Kushina had no response for anything. She would just await and see how things proceed before making any conclusions, but she did trust that Naruto would do what was best for the clan. Once again, a female masked kunoichi appeared before Naruto and whispered into his ear before leaving. Naruto stood up. I better half the road before they come here to call me. Danzo has forced the meeting, he said. I will walk you out, Azumi said as she followed Naruto. Once they were out of the room, she spoke. How did things go? Not well, he said holding out his left hand. He removed the bandages on it. The burnt hand revealed some dark purple spots around it. I might be poisoned. It's dangerously hurting my hand. For now, I have stopped it from spreading but at the cost of my hand usage. I need you to create a seal that will hold this together. My solution is only temporary. Naruto left Azumi puzzled. It was enough that both his hands were burnt, but now one of them was poisoned, and he couldn't use it now. The redhead didn't seem as if he could not use it. He had held his mask as if nothing had happened. At this point, no one would know because he would not show it. Council chambers. Since Minato's rise to the Hokage hot seat, Danzo has never had a day as good as this. The blonde cage has always had a response for everything that he tried to pull. It had been frustrating that he had been forced to just sit back and brood over ways he could handle the situation that was facing him. It hadn't looked as if things would change. The blonde had the support of the villagers, and all the political powerhouses in the village supported him, and even the feudal lord. Minato wasn't an idiot as well. He may be weak-hearted to make the hard decisions, but he made some wise choices. Well, he did have the Sandaime pulling the strings on the sides. Even when retired, that cursed Hiruzen has always found ways to ruin his plans. But now he held all the cards. He could pull the strings and Minato would have no choice but to force things out. Not even Naruto would have a choice in the matter. He might try to say no, but Danzo had a plan for that. The council might even deny his request, but he had a plan that didn't need the council to get what he wanted. Why were we forced into this meeting, Danzo? Sarutobi asked as he took a seat around the large table that housed all the clan heads and the elders of the village. The only one missing in the room was the Uchiha clan head. Fugaku wasn't present in the village, and so he could not be here. The third thought it was something serious if Minato was even willing to come into agreement to it. Danzo had no power to call forth an emergency meeting when Minato was still in capacity to hold to rule. This only meant that the active Hokage had agreed with the plan to call the meeting. But what could have forced Minato's hand? I have come across some disturbing discoveries that affect the security of the village and perhaps its future, Danzo stated in a dead serious tone just for the effect. If it sounds as serious as you make it sound, wouldn't it be better to hold it with Fugaku present? Shikaku asked quietly. Out of everyone, aside from the Hokage and the Uzumaki, he is the one who is responsible for the village's security. We cannot talk security without him. There were a few nods around the chambers. It didn't matter if the man was outside the village. There was a quick solution to bring him here. It doesn't really matter if he is present or not, Danzo said. There were positives and negatives involved with the man's presence in the meeting. But the only wrong was that the man was a Naruto supporter and an ally of the Uzumaki clan. That would prove to be a problem. But it would also be best if he was to be brought so that he can give us an idea of how he plans to deal with the situation. You have made him in charge of our security after all. Minato didn't have a good feeling with the way Danzo said those words. But he had no choice but to bring Fugaku back for the meeting. He was certain that everyone was waiting for him to disappear in a flash of yellow and a minute later reappear with Fugaku by his side. I will teleport away, a not-so-happy Hokage said before disappearing in a flash of yellow. The room was silent after Minato went away. No one was saying anything with everyone waiting for the Hokage to return with Fugaku. There was definitely a tense atmosphere in the room and the expressions differed from person to person. Shikaku let out an audible sigh just to clear the air. It was an emergency meeting, and no one wanted to break the ice without the Hokage. Everyone wanted to play out their thoughts just to wonder what it is really happening here. What could be so important that we had to be dragged into the meeting? Hayashi more or less demanded. He understood that Danzo had said something about village security, but it couldn't be that important that he had to stop what he was doing just to attend the meeting. Everyone wants to know, Chusa said, his eyes looking around, trying to see if anyone would give anything, but everyone kept their masks firm. He came to face Naruto. Don't you know anything? I don't like to be sitting here without any information. Inoichi nodded in agreement with Chusa's worries. The Uzumaki clan also deals with village security. They are our first line of protection. Before the Uchiha know if there is a threat in the village, your clan knows. You basically handle surveillance of the village and then feed that to the Uchiha and Anu to be able to take action as you don't have the power to do anything. That had been the agreed deal with the village leaders. The clan was okay dealing with intelligence, but it was not supposed to have the military power and authority to be able to take action. It was a motion that had been brought just so the clan doesn't have all the power. Naruto didn't look at anyone. He didn't even have his eyes open to do the staring. You deal with intelligence gathering, you should also know. The redhead threw the same card that Inoichi threw at him. If they were going by that logic, then he should also know what is happening. If I knew something I wouldn't have been asking anything about it, Inoichi responded. Naruto let out a careless shrug before responding. Then, if I knew something I would have started speaking already. I don't want to be here. This atmosphere isn't conducive for my happiness. The Sandaime found it amusing. Naruto talking about happiness. He was possibly making a joke, but indeed this place wasn't that great for anyone. Before he could say anything, Minato returned along with Fugaku. Once the two had settled, Minato spoke in a calm yet strong tone. He was in his Hokage mask now. Danzo, I will allow you to do the talking, as you brought the matter to my attention. I'm allowing this so that you can make up your story and everyone can have their thoughts. Where you are lying, I will stop you. We will discuss everything, and I will consider what everyone proposes, but ultimately, I will have the final say. If Danzo didn't have things planned up, he would have frowned at that kind of talk. The blonde had just laid that marker and reminded everyone that he was the Hokage, and thus had the final say in everything. They were just counsels, and could only make a decision when he was incapable of doing so or in times of war. Well, he should have expected to play it like that. The Yondaime had his moments. There were times he put on a brave face and acted like a Hokage. Obviously, the man wasn't a pushover and Danzo had never thought he was like that. Earlier, my men found something dangerous lying underneath the Uzumaki Mask Temple. I was baffled to learn that the Uzumaki had been so careless in placing the Kyuubi outside the village when things are like this. The beast kept underneath the temple isn't just any Bajoa, but the most powerful of the tailed beast. All eyes turned to Naruto. Nobody had known that the Bajoa was sealed underneath the masked temple. They had figured that it was somewhere within the Uzumaki compound and within someone. Yoshino had stated it herself that the Bajoa was best kept safe within a jinchuriki. She had said it so firmly that everything else could only be temporary. Is this true? Yes, Naruto responded with just one word and no nod to emphasize. I understand the worries about that, but so far there hasn't been anything to prove that the Bajoa is sealed at that location. We didn't even know, and that is to say that the seal is secure and safe for Konoha as there haven't been any incident, Shikaku stated, bringing a more reasonable sense of things. Before we make conclusions, we have to narrow the risks of this placement. There is only one risk, and that is if our enemies get hold of the Bajoa. I was able to find out, and we are talking out it now. How long do you think it will take before our enemies find out about it? What if they take it? The Uzumaki can no longer boast about having the power to solve the Bajoa problem. They have no power, Danzo stated in a firm tone that left no argument in what he was saying. It would be disastrous if our enemies managed to get hold of the Bajoa, Kohari said with a small nod. She was in agreement with other clan heads. We have to think about the village's security. Kumo and Iwa both have a combined Bajoa power of 4, and that includes the second strongest beast. If our enemies get hold of the Kyubi, we'd be facing a massive disadvantage, the woman stated. Just imagine it. 5 Bajoas surrounding this village. Who will stand against their power? That just painted a pretty grim picture, and to add to the point already made, Danzo said something. We can't spare our military power to protect the Kyubi from being taken from us when the Bajoa should be used to protect this village. It would be really foolish to even suggest that notion. The Bajoa should be used to protect Konoha, not deplete its power and threaten it. Our military power is already stretched as it is, and we have a number of enemies. Tsunade hasn't proven that it will be any ally that will help is in war. So far its behavior has been disappointing, and we cannot trust it. We also cannot look at Kirigakure for military support. Konoha, at this point, requires for the Kyubi to be used. The war hawk paused for a moment before delivering another blow. Even if our enemies don't get it, what would happen if the villagers came to know of this? Do you think there will be calm in this village? Definitely not, Tsun was the first to respond after a minute of silence. We have to move the Kyubi from that location. We do not have any assurances that our enemies will not know. We have lived long enough to know that nothing really can remain hidden forever. I have to agree with you on that note, Inoichi said. It was really irresponsible for the Uzumaki to make that decision. The kind of chaos this would cause if it got caught would surely make this village ungovernable. We cannot have something like this at this moment. Not when our enemies can take advantage of it. Hayashi added his sense as well. There seemed to be nods of agreements to the matter. Taking that path would also leave an opportunity for the Bajoa to be stolen easily. As it is safe. If anyone could simply enter its location, then Danzo would have taken it, Shikaku said in an unfamiliar strong tone. Taking it to another location means we will have to remove the barriers around it. Naturally, that would make it a lot difficult to deal with. But not impossible, Danzo added. I'd be willing to have all my root shinobi stand in guard while the process occurs. When Kushina was giving birth for the second time, we thought we have all the protection needed and the secrecy, but someone was still able to bypass all that. We set the Bajoa free, the Sandaime just added before falling silent. A safer method would be just to make a jinchuriki, Danzo stated. We have no need for that, and I don't think anyone would be willing to offer their children for that, Minato said, finally speaking since Danzo initiated everything. I have a child who will be more than willing to take it in. It is all for the best of Konoha. I can assure you that I will train that child for Konoha's protection and safety. I cannot agree on giving you the Kyubi to you, Fugaku said. That is just a red flag, and I think everyone will agree with me on that note. You have been after the Kyubi for a long time, giving it to you now will just make all the arguments we made then void. I have proof that Kumo and Uegakure are planning to attack us. At this stage, we need to strengthen our power, and making a jinchuriki will strengthen Konoha. We are going to war, and we will be against Bajoas. We need to have our own jinchuriki to go against that. Unless any of you can claim that you can fight 4 fully transformed Bajoas at the same time and without causing any damage to this village if they were to be unleashed here. There was silence. Complete silence. How do you plan to deal with this, Naruto? Minato asked. I will become the jinchuriki. That solves everything, the redhead stated calmly. When my mother was carrying me, I had contact with its chakra. My body should be familiar with it. Does anyone have a complaint to that? Naruto really had no plans on becoming a jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Besides, there was more than one piece of the Bajoa. They would either have to make two sacrifices or just combine the powers, but that would prove to be a dangerous as it gave the chance for the Bajoa to escape. Naruto was certain that the Kyuubi would no doubt attempt to escape, and during that process there would be a hassle that he didn't want to deal with. Sometimes it was best just to deal with a situation before it even appears rather than waiting upon it. The offer would just quiet things out for now. It would no doubt not fool Danzo, but he could not argue much about it now. He would no doubt make some noise later on, and Naruto was planning on just getting rid of the War Hawk before that becomes a trouble. It was your clan that was against making a jinchuriki and now you want to become one, and willingly. The head of the Ibarame clan questioned, watching the impassive redhead carefully. He was just as surprised as other head clans. Even Minato had a surprised look on his face. He too wasn't expecting it. Obviously the Kyuubi cannot be given to Danzo, and unless any of you are willing to give your children for that role, then I will take the burden and the consequences that have to follow upon that, Naruto responded calmly. He was certain that no one would be willing to allow their children to become jinchurikis. The Kyuubi was hated upon this village for what has happened in the past, and if it were to become known that someone has carried it within them, they would certainly become the object of that resentment, just as the Uzumaki clan had been during those days. If he is willing to become a jinchuriki, then I see no problem. We must just be informed when it will happen so that we can make proper arrangements, and I don't see anyone more capable of containing the Kyuubi than Naruto. Inoichi was the first one to speak after Naruto. It might have been out of fear. The man had thought of his precious little daughter containing that hateful beast. He could not stomach that. Naruto was already the kind of person who could hold it. Perhaps they could only worry about his mental state, but from the physical side of things and the hatred that would follow, Naruto was fine with that. I think we can all agree to allowing Naruto to become the jinchuriki, Fugaku said, his eyes narrowed towards the redhead. That should solve that problem of safety from the Bajoa. Since he is Uzumaki, he should have a good handle on its powers and keeping it at bay. That is just one matter handled. We must discuss this situation between Kumo and Iwa. Minato just stared at the empty space before him. Naruto had come up with a solution, but he wasn't sure his son wanted to become a jinchuriki. It would be a problem. The power would be great, but Naruto didn't like given power. If he did great things because of the Kyuubi's power, people would not recognize him as they would if it was his own power. Naruto would crush that thought if it came to that. After all, before anything else, Naruto thought of himself and his desires. Anything that was permanent on his grand ambition would not be tolerated. The jinchuriki thing was only brought up just because he wanted to quiet people up. If he solved Danzo, the clan heads would not bring it up again. The Yondaime Hokage was certain of it. Everyone seems to agree that Naruto can take this great burden, Minato finally said. Surprisingly, Danzo didn't object. In fact, he merely kept his calm, and that made the Yondaime Hokage wary. The fact that the War Hawk was silent meant that he was planning something, or he had something planned up. Drea had also informed me about Iwa and Kumo. The reason for creating the military force outside of the village was to counter this. In this way, the villages will move with us knowing. For now, we just need to know how we will react and with what. They can't get into the fire borders without us knowing. We have made sure of that. Are we still going to play defensive? Danzo asked in a quiet tone. Well, I guess we cannot afford to branch out and attack. Commanding a large force to attack will leave the village open for attacks. But we have the right weapons for war. If we can move them carefully while securing our borders, we can exhaust the enemy without using much of our strength. A few minutes later. What were you thinking? Fugaku demanded of Naruto. They were inside Minato's office. I never thought you'd agree to something like that. No less even offer yourself. Well, I don't really have a problem with it, but we all know that you don't really plan on becoming a jinchuriki and Danzo knows it as well. Which would bring us to the question of why he didn't object, the Sandaime Hokage said in a tired tone. He has something planned up, obviously, and the emergency meeting was probably just to see how everyone would react and who he could count on for support. With how things went, it just goes to show us most clan heads don't that high opinion of you, Minato said to Naruto. They were quick to jump into your offer not because it saved their children, but just thought perhaps you were fitting given your personality. It could be that they just didn't want to object to the idea. Spineless cowards, Naruto said with a shake of his head. This has been something else, and I have a lot to think about. You will have to excuse me. The redhead walked out of the office without another word and one stopped him. When Naruto walked out of the office, he walked for a bit along the passages and came across Danzo, who seemed to have been waiting for him. The redhead didn't say anything, he just walked past the war hawk, and the old man followed him from behind. It was all just silence until they stepped out of the Hokage tower. I have an antidote to the poison on your left hand. You won't find it anywhere, and if you allow the poison to remain there, it will eat your flesh. For someone like you, I assume the loss of your entire hand will ruin your goal. You don't care about anything, and it should not be a problem if I have the QB. Danzo paused for a moment before adding. It is your reason for living, or the QB, you make the choice. But you don't have much long to wonder about it. Give me the QB, and you can keep dreaming. Danzo didn't wait for an answer from Naruto, he merely walked away like a good old cripple. Naruto merely let loose of a sigh before taking the direction of his clan's compound. It was a strange position he was in, but it was by no means a life and death situation. Certainly any threat to his dream could not be welcomed, but this was nothing. It wasn't an impossible situation for him. He could solve Danzo and still work out things for himself. Just as the War Hawk had said, he didn't really care who kept the QB. For now it was a responsibility that had been given to him by Yoshino. Perhaps if he had been in favorable terms with the War Hawk, he would have just given it to him if he wanted. He would only be in possession of just one piece after all, and if there was some danger, he could use the piece he had in his possession to offset it. With the man coming at him like this, Naruto could not come to that choice. He had been planning with Itachi to take care of the elder anyway. Not everything was safe with the man still breathing, and hence the need to take him down. His root forces didn't have to be killed off, they could be of some use, especially in this kind of situation the elemental nations were in. Without even noticing it, Naruto had reached the Uzumaki compound and was back in his responsibility room sitting beside his small table. He had his left hand lying on the table, while he stared blindingly at the empty space ahead of him. Back so soon, Izumi said as she walked into the room. Things went a lot quicker than expected. I thought you'd be locked up in the chambers making arguments with other clan heads. That would be too much of a hassle, Naruto responded a bit lazily. There are just too many of them, and I cannot see myself doing a debate with them. It would possibly end with just insults and thinly veiled threats, on their part at least. As such, I try as much as I can to avoid situations that would lead to pointless debates. Not everything had to be debated to be solved. One just had to make a choice that everyone would agree with, and things would be done with. Even though he was not going to follow what he says, it was a good strategy that avoided long arguments about what needed to be done, and the longer things drag on, you may possibly find yourself being faced with more questions. He was good at answering questions. He could certainly give anyone satisfactory answers if he was forced into that position, but of course that only meant when he was willing. Izumi shook her head in Naruto's response. Then, how did things go? The spineless cowards ran at the mention of the QB lying low in the outskirts of the village, and they were ready to jump the ship when I suggested they offer their children to being made jinchurikis after it was agreed that the Bajor could not be given to Danzo. That is a difficult choice that one cannot make on the spot, Naruto. You have a lot of things you have to consider, and just envisioning your child carrying such a burden would be too much for any parent. Carrying such a fate literally changes your being and whole future. You have to turn into something else. Azumi would also not wish for anyone to carry the burden. The one of carrying the QB was not an easy task, it was a great task that would need a strong mind. A weak-minded person could fall into darkness and allow the Bajor to influence him or her. It could break a person. By becoming a jinchuriki, one also forgoes the normal living, and with the village facing war, it was obvious that the clan heads thought of the possibility of their children being treated as a weapon for war. Difficult, perhaps, Naruto said, but they are just hypocrites. They speak of sacrificing for the village when faced with the choice, they can't make any. When someone offers to sacrifice, they have no worries in supporting the person, and then hailing him as a hero for it. I'm certain if my father had been forced to make a sacrifice, he would have made either me or Karin a jinchuriki. That man will sacrifice everything. Azumi stared at Naruto for a few moments as she tried to discover the meaning of his words. It took a few moments, but she finally figured out something before asking, "Did you offer to become the jinchuriki?" Naruto nodded. "Of course, I have no plans on actually going through that. I just have to stall for the time being until a nuisance is dealt with." He paused for a moment, adopting a strange look on his face. "I get the feeling that most of the clan heads don't really care for me. They are more than willing to throw me into the wolves at first opportunity." "You don't win any awards for Personality of the Year," Azumi pointed out, "but that doesn't justify anything. It should not matter as you have no plans to follow through it. However, what if you're forced to do so?" Naruto was silent for a few moments as he wrestled with the question. He ended up just shrugging. "If things get to that point, I will make a decision that will benefit me. Unfortunately, I do not share the same idea that konoha must come first. So any decision will depend on how I view things at that stage. I wonder what will happen when you're in a situation where you can't provide an immediate answer." "You're a bit careless for your own good," Azumi said with a shake of her head. "More to pressing matters, as it is apparent you're not worried about this QB matter. What about your hand? Get me a medic to look at it over." "I can't go to the hospital," Naruto said firmly. "Danzo has also said that the poison will eat my hand, and only he has the antidote. If I want to heal, I just have to go to him with the QB and he will supply." "Do you think he would really supply if you gave him the QB?" Naruto nodded. "I'm too much of a valuable asset to Konoha to simply allow becoming useless," the redhead stated calmly. "In any case, go get me that medic. I need fix this before I become anxious." "You have no plans to give Danzo the QB? What will happen if you lose your hand, Naruto?" "Nothing," Naruto said. "I have learned to execute jutsu with just one hand seals, so it shouldn't affect my ninjutsu. It will even make my fame even more tremendous when people learn that I was crippled, but of course that isn't what I am looking for. A disadvantage like that would get me killed if it got discovered." Earlier at the Hokage's office, the Sandaime Hokage stared at Naruto's back as the redhead walked away. There was so much that needed to be discussed, and yet he didn't even have the energy to halt the clan head in his retreat. They had to talk to him about what would be done with his choice to become a jinchuriki. Neither of the two adults seemed to have the energy to stop the Uzumaki from leaving. They all just stared at him. It was apparent to everyone that even if he was called to stop, he would not. He didn't want to talk about it any further, and somehow, it looked as if the job for the day was done. The Sandaime assumed Naruto knew what was going to happen, and then had just made the plan to avoid the bullet, just for today, as he would be planning something else. The retired Kage wondered what could have happened between Naruto and Danzo for the War Hawk to have been so silent even after Naruto offered to become the jinchuriki. His former teammate was no doubt looking for the QB and would not rest until he got it. Then there was a battle going on that he had missed. He needed the details before deciding of what to do with the situation. It was a serious matter that needed to be solved quickly before Danzo got hold of the Bajoa. That would not be good if it happened. Am I the only one who thinks that there is a possibility of Naruto giving the QB to Naruto? The Sandaime Hokage stated as he took a seat. He was too old to be thinking hard whilst standing. Jiraiya popped out of nowhere and spoke, as if he had just been waiting for the right moment to appear. He would do so, the Sannin stated. Naruto is too indifferent about many things around life, even about konoha. What Danzo would do with the Kyuubi would not concern him unless it affected him. But with the way Danzo went about it, there is no way that Naruto is going to give Danzo the Kyuubi. The Sannin was firm in his tone and conviction. He did not believe that Naruto would do something like that. As selfish as he was, the redhead still had his pride, and would not be forced into a situation he did not want unless he chose to accept it, because he doesn't care and it won't affect his future. Fugaku nodded in agreement. That is my thought as well, he said. I have only been gone for a few days, and I get called quickly with Danzo already on the move. Can't you handle things without me? Minato shrugged at the stare from the Uchiha head. It is merely a coincidence that Danzo made a move just after you left the village, and I don't think even you would have known about this. No one would have seen it coming. But it has happened, and we needed to solve it. I'm not worried much about it though, I am more concerned about the impending war. That is ultimately the bigger problem, Sarutobi stated in a calm tone. I have my doubts about Naruto, but if you are not worried, I can also lessen my worries. But tell me, why doesn't it bother you that Naruto seemingly made the choice to become a jinchuriki right on the spot without even giving it a thought? Naruto has no plans to become a jinchuriki, and I believe that he has some sort of plan in dealing with Danzo, Minato said. That is what worries me, but it makes me rest easy about Danzo at the same time. What Naruto is planning about Danzo, Itachi must be on it as well. Fugaku appeared to think for a few moments. This brings to the Shizui incident, the Uchiha head said. I think it will be fine if Danzo disappears. As long as we gain control of his forces. We cannot deny that they can be a massive military force that will help the village. We can't protect Konoha from the inside when we know there is a thorn in the inside. I wouldn't go that far, the Sandaime spoke. Above everything else, Danzo does wish for what is best for Konoha. I know him well enough. With the war looming, he will not do anything to weaken this village, but will do everything he can to make sure Konoha survives and reigns supreme. Jiraiya shook his head. His sensei was something else, still letting Danzo continue to live even after everything. That man was rotten, and even though he wished for Konoha's good, he was still more than willing to do everything that was dark and would ruin Konoha's reputation as well as its relationship with other villages. Let us rather talk about the war, Jiraiya more or less forced out, a little annoyed by what his sensei had just said. But before that, how did Danzo get hold of such information? Why was it even kept a secret? Clan secrets, Minato said, with a slight shrug of his right shoulder. It was never a problem to begin with, and I still don't see it as a problem. I trust the work that was done there to confidently say that the Kyuubi has no chance of escaping, but I acknowledge the fact that it will be a problem if the villagers know about this. The professor felt a little pang inside his heart at knowing that Minato had willingly kept something like this from him. He was still a Kage, just not active. He had always shared with Minato everything that he felt needed to be told, but it was apparent that Minato didn't share the same idea. The third didn't hide his disappointment in his expression. Minato was quick to notice it and responded to it. Don't act as if you don't keep things from me, Sandaime-sama, the fourth spoke in a serious tone. I know you only tell me things you think I have to know. As I have said, this was a clan secret. You should understand that. The Uzumaki are very strict with their secrets. I'm telling you that if they want to keep something secret, they can and will without you knowing. And they know how to keep things out. The second war must have taught them a good lesson, Jiraiya said in thought. But that security didn't keep Danzo out. He was able to sniff things out. Nothing is ever that secure, but even if he was able to know, he wasn't able to do anything. Minato said. In any case, the Kyuubi is secure and we just have to worry about what Naruto will do. No one can take the Kyuubi without Naruto's permission. If he isn't willing, it is impossible. So it all depends on him. You should not have given Naruto that kind of power when you know what kind of a person he is, Sarutobi said. It was the clan that decided, and Naruto takes his responsibilities seriously. He might be an indifferent person, he isn't that amoral and is guided by principles. Minato said, defending his own son. Let us talk about our measures for war. It cannot be avoided at this stage. We have to fight and defend our village. Of course, what we seek isn't total destruction of the enemy, we will still seek to end things with understanding during or after. Other methods had to be sought in order to create lasting peace. If things just end with Konoha defeating its enemies, then the village would be in danger of being dragged into war once again. They had to make plans to ensure that things end with firm handshakes and strong lessons learned. It would be pointless if they get into this war and all that is achieved is just bloodshed and the reduction of shinobi population. War was a horrible thing, but Minato believed that they would have to learn something from it just to make sure that they make plans to avoid it from happening again. This would be his second war. He did not wish for this world to see another war. Later that day, when Minato appeared atop of the Hokage monument, he could not help but light up a smile under the gaze of the night stars. He was smiling because he was seeing something that one Goto rarely see, Naruto looking peaceful. Perhaps the only time you'd feel peaceful aura around him was when his sister was close to him. Minato had no doubt that Karin was the strong attachment that Naruto had. It was beautiful how much the redhead loved his sister. This love, though not shown very much, Minato knew that there was no one that his son loved more than Karin. The redhead was sitting down staring at village lights below with a content look on his face. His younger sister had her head resting on his lap. Minato assumed the girl was sound asleep. Well, she does spend a lot of energy during the day. Nights were for a death sleep for the girl. Sorry to disturb your quiet time, Minato said as he sat right beside his son. Naruto gave a slight shake of his head. You're not disturbing me. I find just a couple of seconds to be enough to experience these kinds of moments. I wish not to enjoy it too much. Minato merely shook his head. For some people, it is a good time to settle their thoughts and reflect on their lives and choices. Sometimes to make those tough decisions, you need a still mind thinking more rationally and logically to get it right. But doesn't mean you will always get it right. I'm not some people, Naruto responded calmly. Yes, you are Naruto, the Yondaime Hokage said. We have had less of time together, and that makes it difficult for me to understand what is happening in your mind. You know, I get a lot of questions asked about you, and as your father, I like to be able to confidently answer most of them. If you can't answer, you should refer them to me, or just tell those asking to mind their own business, Naruto said flatly. He then sighed, and looked down at his younger sister. I assume you want to know about what Danzo has on me. Or what he did and how he found out. Minato nodded. I don't know how he found out, but I will know soon enough. He doesn't have anything on me. You should know I don't do blackmails. I would have snapped his neck if he was playing that kind of a game, Naruto said firmly. 2 of his root shinobi got through the first barriers, and one of them was likely in a barame. As he was speaking, the redhead undid the bandages on his left hand, revealing the dark, purple spots around it. Got poisoned, but Izumi has protected the rest of the arm, so the poison won't spread. Nevertheless, this is killing it, and with how the poison was stopped from spreading, I cannot use this hand. Minato's face lost all the light as it turned grim. So Danzo wants the QB in exchange for the antidote to heal you. That is crafty of him. He must have studied your personality well, but he did make a mistake though. If there was no mistake, I would have given him the QB, Naruto said to his father. In any case, he won't get it. I have to say that I am surprised that you got poisoned. For someone who was obsessed with defense in your younger days, you went about protecting yourself very well, the Yondaime Hokage said. I have given little way for attack. You cannot really fight fluidly with chains all over your body. The body feels imprisoned and movements are stiff. Besides, my jutsu was never made to counter such things. I made it to protect me against physical attacks and certain jutsu, Naruto said. During the Chunin exams in Kumo, lightning got through and now this. Perhaps I have not become defensively minded as I was, or another option which is unlikely, but possible. What? I have become careless and arrogant in my power, thinking I cannot be harmed by anyone. Minato smiled. That is indeed unlikely, he said with a nod to emphasize. Arrogance has never been in you. Perhaps overconfidence. Naruto seemed to think about the idea, but he didn't say anything even after he finished his thought process. Minato turned silent for a few moments as he wondered about what to do to help Naruto. Naruto's body was already under strain. He was consistently taking medicine for his migraines, and back then, after his boil accident, he had suffered intensive damages, so much more that Yoshino had to use her power to get him in shape, and that had come with sacrifices from the old woman. Despite being Uzumaki, Minato was sure that his son would not last long because of how his body has suffered. In training, Naruto had pushed his body to the limits. Right now, he needed someone with some medical expertise to solve his health problems. You should ask for Jiraiya to tell you of Tsunade's location. She is still the best medical nin in the elemental nations, Minato said. I would also like her to return. This should be a mission. Bring back Tsunade to the leaf, even if you have to use force. The Yondaime paused, and quickly corrected himself. Okay, maybe not force. Naruto faced his father for the first since they started talking. The man stared back, but with a smile. The redhead just shook his head and spoke. I will see to it when I return. I will be leaving Konoha tomorrow before the sun sets. Where to? Uzu. I need to get things ready. I have raised the necessary funds, and I just need to procure the right people to start the project. Chapter 17. Should you be carelessly strolling around the elemental nations like this? Jiraiya called out to Naruto, who was slowly walking through under the dark shades of trees in a country that wasn't their home. For Konoha shinobi, it was seriously risky to be moving around like this. The fire country was safe, but the rest of the nations were not. Perhaps for Naruto, it wasn't so much as a problem as the redhead had a reputation. No one would openly attack him without any plans to take him down. The redhead wasn't the kind of shinobi normal people wanted to fight, and for good reasons. Naruto had a record of killing his opponents. Jiraiya could not understand the redhead's obsession with destroying his opponents. It was likely they were simply not seen as opponents, but rather enemies that had to be eradicated. Naruto didn't stop walking. He continued walking towards his destination in a leisurely pace. It took about a minute or so before he could respond to the Sannin, and that was after the man had dropped from the trees and landed on his left to walk by his side. Should I? If I shouldn't, I wouldn't be walking through this place, Naruto responded in a calm tone. He didn't turn to face the Sannin, but just focused his partially opened eyes on the road ahead of him. Why are you following me, Jiraiya? The Sannin went silent at the question. It wasn't that he didn't have an answer for it. He did have one, but rather was just thinking about a few things. Really, he wanted to know where Naruto was heading towards. The redhead didn't have any connections in these parts of the elemental nations, so where was he heading towards? Naruto wasn't the one for schemes, so he could rule out scheming with someone. It was likely something bothersome that would likely just cause trouble. Minato told me you'd gone to Uzu to set up your project, Jiraiya said. I followed thinking that we'd go look for Tsunade after you have done what you need to do. The sage studied Naruto carefully, trying to see if he would get a reaction, but nothing was shown in Naruto's body language. He was looking for something because he had been told of Naruto's condition. For someone who had a lot of enemies, it was dangerous for him as he was really at a disadvantage. Well, Naruto was Naruto. Jiraiya could never fully claim to be able to understand the redhead. For someone who has a phobia against defeat, the Sannin had thought he wouldn't even want to be seen walking around in fear of someone noticing his troubling situation. Oh, my father told you, and your question earlier stemmed from your knowledge. The redhead responded to the toad sage, a quiet tone and a small smile. You must be really excited to see your former teammate once again. I thought you'd say that I was asking, because I was worried about you, Drea said. Well, that would mix up with his first statement, and it wouldn't be far off from the truth. While he was excited to see Tsunade again, he was still worried about Naruto. The Uzumaki clan head turned his head slightly to face Drea. It was only for a couple of seconds, but it was long enough for the Sannin to take a look at that indifferent expression on Naruto's face as well as the eyes that had a glint of boredom in them. At least you're not the suspicious type your sensei is, Naruto said as he turned to the way ahead. I still have other business to attend. I found people to build my hotels and the right farmers, but there are materials that are needed, and I need people for that. Drea narrowed his eyes slightly. For someone who was infamous for his ignorance, you have really turned things around. You wouldn't know where to find the right people for that, but it seems that you know what you are doing and where you are going. Who is supplying you information? Merchants, Naruto simply said. Did you know that most of them have no real allegiance to the lands in which they do their business? They are simply in it for the business. It wouldn't matter if I procured services from a merchant selling in Iwa. That may be true, but that is still playing a dangerous game, Drea said in a firm tone. Even though you do business with them, they will betray you if someone offered them a better business. That is simply business, Naruto said nonchalantly. I am given to understand that in business, profits speak more than loyalties. The redhead went silent for a couple of seconds before speaking once again. I'll not move with you as of yet. I have matters to attend. More like trying to alleviate your boredom, Drea said suspiciously. You can get all the materials you need from the Fire Nation or in the Wave. You don't have to go this far and in enemy territory to make friends. That doesn't change anything, Drea. Really, I don't wish to be in your company when I reach my destination, the redhead said. Given this direction, you're probably heading towards Kumo, the Sannin frowned. You don't have a great history with that village, and I think that the Raikage would rather get you attacked than let you move freely in his village. It would be a plus for him if his village was able to get rid of you. No doubt about that. Naruto's visit was nothing more than suicidal. Kumagakure didn't like him and Naruto didn't like the village in particular. As with most other things, he was indifferent towards the village. But that didn't mean that it would allow him to enter his village and leave freely, especially when he was preparing to go to war with Konoha. The man had nothing to lose now. He didn't have to risk anything by doing that. He was already planning to go to war with Konoha, so that kind of action would only fasten things up a little, and would also reduce Konoha's strength. There was no doubt that as a shinobi, Naruto was very much valuable than most. Something like that can happen, and given my situation, it wouldn't be good. I don't have those kinds of escape jutsus you specialize in, but it doesn't change anything. I will see what will happen when I do arrive in the village, Naruto responded with a small shrug. What are you really going to do really? I'm going to collect my reward for winning the Chunin exams. There was a certain bet I made with Kumo's jinchuriki. I want to see her now, and the fireworks between Konoha and Kumo will not get in the way of that, Naruto said in a firm tone. I will go with you, just in case, Drea said in a fierce tone. Naruto turned to look at the Sannin and realized that the man was really serious. To get the man to get back, he would have to fight him, and he didn't have that kind of energy. It was all right. As long as you don't get in my way, you can do as you please. Drea grinned. It will be just that time we went out for a trip, he said happily. No, it won't. Iwagakure. War has never been something to enjoy or something to look forward to. Onoki knew its ugly face and the smell it brought forward after passing. He had lived long enough to see many lives ruined by wars and nations ruined because of war. There was no beauty in those bloody clashes that do nothing but rob children of their parents and feed the world with blood and a scent of death. Yet, even knowing all these, Onoki was actually looking forward to this one. Perhaps that came out in a wrong way. He wasn't some old man who was plotting for war to occur so that he could see the ugly face of the bloody battles. This war would simply bring an end to the tensions that have been breathing in the past years within the borders of enemy nations. It was slightly unbearable, and the only way this could end was if the nations fought. Any result would probably end things. Whether it would last for many years would be the main question that would need to be answered. It was probably Kuretsuchi's generation that would have to answer the question. Onoki was sure he wouldn't be alive for another war after this one. He was already old enough and had seen enough. This had to be his last war. If he was alive to see another war happening, he would probably never die again, or perhaps he would die just by hearing that the nations were planning for another war. Konoha had been keeping the villages from acting. It was no doubt that he had not acted because of the leaf's power. He simply could not just send his men out knowing what kind of weapons Konoha had in its arsenal. A solution needed to be brought before he could march into the borders of the enemy nation. It was preparations for what is about to come that was making him scheme with the likes of the Akatsuki and this stinking four-eyed snake before him. Onoki had never dealt with Orochimaru face to face, but it has always been Kabuto appearing before him. Of course he was merely using the nin for his information, and would not waste the chance to get rid of him when the door does open up for him. You should not make your thoughts so obvious, Sakikage, Kabuto said to Onoki with a small smile. Really, just from the way the old man was looking at him, it was easy to tell what he was thinking. Then again, he didn't think the Kage really cared if he knew the thoughts he had of him or not. The relationship he had with the Sakikage was not one that was based on trust or anything similar. It was simply based on a mutual objective. They didn't need to be good friends to get what was needed to be done. Kabuto could be professional without allowing his treacherous thoughts get the better of him. He has been working around the game for too long after all. Onoki shrugged, I don't like you, that isn't going to change any day soon. There is no need to exchange smiles. In the end we are merely using each other to get something we both want, or at least what your master wants, the Sandaime Sakikage stated calmly. Kabuto chuckled lightly at the boldness of Onoki. Well, it was to be expected. The old man wasn't the one who played under the cards with his feelings. He was dealing with a stubborn old man, but not so stupid. That is indeed true, Kabuto said slyly. I have brought you something you will like. Orochimaru-sama has said if you're able to get it done, he would not hesitate to meet you in person to share with you his knowledge about Konoha's military strength just in time for your war. Onoki narrowed his eyes slightly. Kabuto was speaking as if he knew something that he did not, but he wasn't going to ask what. He would not dare give himself away like that. He was smart enough to avoid making amateurish mistakes. This wasn't the first time he was making deals with the devil, after all. What do you have for me? Konoha's new military activities within the fire borders led by the Uchiha. I know that you have been trying to rid of those Ukas. Kabuto said. Well, his master has been trying to get the Ukas for their Sharingan. Onoki just wanted to get rid of it more than anything. It was understandable since the clan boosted Konoha's military power by some large proportions. Nothing new in that, Onoki said with a wave of his right hand. I already know about it. It was in fact something that was making him anxious, because it would stop him from making careless moves within the fire country. It would now be difficult to get information out of Konoha, and even if they do succeed in getting the information, getting it out of the fire country borders would be another thing because of those cursed blood-red eyes watching the like hawks. It was a smart move on Konoha's part, but one that Onoki thought could change things quickly. He just had to play his cards right in order to things in the way that he wishes for them to turn out. If he worked out things perfectly, he could weaken the leaf and perhaps gain the Sharingan. I'm not surprised that you know, it isn't a secret after all, Kabuto said. But that isn't what I want to share with you. I have the location of the base, and details on how to get in and out. If you get into their base, you get Uchiha Fugaku. That is one of Konoha's most powerful shinobi. Remove him and you wound the Uchiha and Konoha. The Uchiha are greatly influenced by their emotions. It's likely they will look for revenge if you get that done, and that will make it easy to pick them up pieces by pieces. That is just -1 problem for you, Kabuto said. What do you gain by this? Kabuto merely smiled and waved his right hand in a dismissive manner. You don't have to worry yourself about that. We will reap our rewards. Of course it doesn't mean by stabbing you in the back. We don't even plan on getting involved with your war. It doesn't interest us one bit. Why then? Call it spite, or anything you like. Orochimaru-sama doesn't like the Uchihas, and wants them to be destroyed. If he could, he would lead the destruction of every one of the Uchihas by himself, but you have the military power and connections in the form of the Akatsuki to get it done. That is why he is willing to give you the information you need. Onoki stared at Kabuto for a few moments. It was interesting that the four-eyed nin had mentioned the Akatsuki. It doesn't that the subject was taboo. The Sandaime Sakikage thought the man knew that he was likely going to hire the organization to get the job done. He would just have to spend more money to get it done than risk losing his own power. Why don't you give the information to the Akatsuki yourselves? We don't have a good relationship with them, and we are also hoping that the Uchiha even manage to take one of them. Kabuto wasn't afraid to admit that much. It wouldn't be bad even if they kill each other. You wouldn't mind if something like that happened, would you? Onoki considered his options for a few moments before responding. Not at all. I have been using the organization for far too long, and it seems that I have become dependent on them due to their military power. The problem is that they know too much about my activities, and I do not know anything about them. That would make it difficult if they become a problem that needs to be removed in the future. Kabuto smiled like a predator as he pushed his glasses up. I have information about them that you might find useful. He turned away from Onoki as he spoke. We shall trade for it for something valuable. I don't want information, but something else. Onoki snorted. He would only do that if he was forced. He could see that Kabuto had been waiting for the moment just to say that. He would not be played simply by a brat. Kabuto was still too young to fool him. Information I requested about Naruto. Kabuto stopped and turned to face Onoki once again. What you know of him is nothing compared to the real deal. I have to say, he is a rather frightening person when he wants to be. I don't have anything new, but I think we will know soon enough. The time is right. Kumigakure. You don't have to look that disappointed, you know, Jiraiya said to Naruto. It was almost amusing to see just how disappointed the redhead looked simply because he did not find what he was looking for. Apparently, Uchiha was out of Kumigakure and on a mission. The redhead hadn't been all pleased to hear that. He had traveled all the way from Uzu just to see her after all, and he had been expecting more. But now he had to go home empty-handed. Well, he should have made sure he knew that the person he was looking for was inside the village. It wasn't a problem for him since he had the network to confirm the movements of his people. Naruto did not have that kind of a network. Well, at least in the enemy territory. Naruto stared at the bottle of water before him. There was a look of disdain in his eyes as he stared at the bottle. He really didn't find joy in drinking the water. Perhaps it was distasteful because he was trying to replace it with alcohol. A bottle of sake should have been in front of him, but he had water. Water. I should have been with that woman, Naruto said as he turned his eyes towards the dim window. Well, this thing happens in life. I wanted to see her before we get to fight in the war. She is a jinchuriki, I'm going to face her once again. If you want to see her that much, you could have said so, I would have found out where she went for you. Jiraiya said, slightly surprised. Naruto had never really shown this much interest in someone who isn't closely related towards him. He just didn't care about other people. So to have him take this much effort to see someone was something else. I know where she went, Naruto said. I talked to one of her friends. A rather cold woman, but someone I'd like if I had the heart. I just find her interesting, the redhead said. I left a message for her. Tomorrow, I must be focused on something else. Jiraiya wanted to ask if that was the feeling towards woman. Naruto was too indifferent to be one falling in love. He generally didn't care about a lot of things, even the things happening in front of him. It would be a massive injustice to reality and the truth to say that Naruto was emotionally drawn towards Uchiha. If anything, it was like as he said, he found her to be interesting and it likely ended there. It was possible that the redhead would never actually love a woman, but just find them interesting enough for him to be around them. This could really explain his attitude towards them when he wasn't drinking. Well, Drea did not have that much of a success when it came with love. He was still wounded with love unreciprocated. Sometimes he could argue that it did best not to love than having to experience the pain. But that wasn't something that Naruto had to worry about it. He didn't have the heart to love after all. So if something he found interesting turned him down, he was likely to just turn indifferent towards it simply because there would be no emotional attachment towards it. I see, Drea said as he too turned to look outside the room they were in. I'm surprised that no one has come to us since we came here. We got in on secret, and my chakra has been suppressed by a seal since my appearance in the village. A henge did the trick to make me look like a civilian, Naruto said. Given all your talk before we got here, I was surprised that you'd actually choose to hide your appearance. This is the first time I see you doing something like that, the Sannin said. He was smiling even. I'm not suicidal, Naruto said. The Raikage would have surely made sure I was captured. And this isn't the first time I'm doing it. You forget that I was a member of Konoha's military police force. Investigations sometimes forced one to go undercover in order to get the truth. Drea was silent for a few moments. At least you learned some meaningful principles in the police force, the Sannin said. How well do you do with intelligence? Naruto faced Drea with an expressionless mask and closed eyes, head tilted to the side. What is the meaning of the question, Drea? You not the same ignorant person you were as a child? You take much time to study and learn things about this world and the things that are around you, even though you don't care, the Sannin said. But I just want to confirm. Is there really an existence of the Uzumaki Secret Service? Naruto opened his left eye slightly, but revealed none of his thoughts on the question. Interesting, the redhead said. If we had something like that, then the Uzumaki clan would be an awesome clan, one that I would feel proud of leading. The clan heads have always stayed out of your clan's way because they did not underestimate its power. You did not have any political power because you chose not to go after it, but still remained an influential family. Even with the death of the Sealing Corps, the clan heads still hold respect. Many people think that the clan is out, but yet when you were being officially made clan head, the major powers were there. Hayashi was present even in his clear dislike of you. He was still there to celebrate your rise to the mantle of clan head. Shikaku, who is the Jonin commander, was present as well as Inoichi. Why do these people who hold so much respect for your clan even though it looks powerless? I sense a great mystery, Naruto said, without showing too much interest in the conversation. My clan is nothing more than a humble clan that loves to be peaceful. Drea snorted. That is completely different from your personalities. The man didn't go further than that. In any case, I have my suspicions about the Secret Service. Secret Service, huh? Naruto appeared to think about it. It has a nice ring to it. But I'm not really the kind of person for intelligence work. It requires you to always think on your feet, and I don't really like that. Drea nodded to that. Certainly, operating a secret intelligence unit would be out of character for you. Still, when forced, you do things out of character, the Sannin stated firmly. But I have always been curious, your clan only operates the barrier that protects Konoha, not run an intelligence unit. So why is it that other clan heads continue to say that your clan knows most about what happens in the village more than the Uchiha, and perhaps even Anbu? It shouldn't be possible unless the clan has other eyes watching over things. This is something interesting. Indeed it is, Drea said firmly. You, Uzumaki Naruto, fear going against the unknown. You don't want to face anything you don't know in battle because that would represent a chance of surprise that would defeat you. For you, defeat is death, so you'd be willing to do anything to know. You discarded your previous ignorance and worked hard to know. You read more than your father, you study current events even though you have no interest in them. It seems that you have a lot to say, Drea, Naruto said calmly. But unfortunately, I do not. Amigakure. The world's powerhouses were truly treacherous and only sought to increase their power over everything. The fear of Konoha wasn't simply because it was the strongest and its power continually grows. Unlike with other villages, it had something to do with being shinobi and their never-ending hatred towards each other. The sins of the past were not forgiven. The actions of the hidden leaf of the past were unjust, and it was time the village was caught up. As it stood, the village had nowhere to run or hide. It had Kumo and some other small villages gunning against it. It was almost sad to know that the hidden was pitted against such a mountain. Nagato really didn't care either way. Perhaps a part of him would wish for the village to be destroyed. He could never come to forgive the village for its role in his pain. No one was truly just in this world, but the leaf had become too prideful in its blood peace. The village hypocritically acts as the good village while its actions under the table completely expose its true face. Well, it was a bit of a surprise that the village has yet to ignite the flames of war despite the amount of attacks it has been getting from both Iwa and Kumigakure. It was owed to the presence of the Yondaime Hokage. If it was someone else, the hidden leaf would have surely went to war long ago, but it had been stalling for what reason, the god of Ame could not decipher. We have another request from the Tsukikage, Konan said as she walked towards Pain, who was standing at the balcony, looking down the raining streets of the village hidden in rain. Pain did not turn to face Konan as he responded. Something that has to do with Konoha. I presume. That old man is really obsessed with the hidden leaf. Well, I cannot make any complaints because this works better for us. It actually accelerates our plans. By much, Konan said. Though, we will have to continue mercenary for a while. It is fine, Nagato said. That is nothing to worry about. Besides, it won't be long before we take the center stage. Once the hidden villages start their war, we will make our move. For now, we can just focus on gathering the funds and strengthening ourselves. Our time will arrive and we will seize it with both hands for peace to come into fruition. Konan nodded. She would always support every decision that Nagato does take. She was but a pillar of his dreams after all. Her dream was to see his dream come to pass. Onoki wants us to get rid of certain Uchias stationed outside the hidden leaf. Zetsu organized a hefty sum for the job to be done. In our position, we can demand any pay we want because he has nowhere to go, but to us. He also knows that we will succeed, hence he agreed to pay the sum demanded, despite how large it is, Konan said. Nagato nodded and continued his silence for a few seconds. After the war, the village will surely be lacking in terms of funding. It would be bad if they lose even. He is using too much funds in his crusade against Konoha. It will be disastrous should he end up in a losing position. Iwagakure might not even survive, and even if it does survive, it will be severely crippled. The Tsukikage was surely not thinking that Konoha would come out on top in the war. Well, considering the military power of both Iwagakure and Kumo, he could put a reasonable argument about his chances. Victory wasn't out of the picture, it was very much within his grasp. But he would not enjoy it, because once the jinchurikis were brought out to play, he would strike and get his hands on those precious human sacrifices. He could not afford to lose this one chance that had presented itself before. The good thing about this chance was that it just made things easy for him. If Kumo and Iwa win, they are likely to fight each other, Nagato said. Each of the hidden village has its own agenda. They might work together for the same goal for a while, but once it's done, they stab each other in their backs. But this is precisely why we must recreate this world and get rid of its current system. The man paused. Given the Uchiha's might, we should send a team that is most suited for them. Haiden and Kakuzu will do, but just for safe measures, Bidara and Sasarai will be on standby. Konan raised an eyebrow. Nagato didn't normally do things like this. He usually just sent a team to do a mission. He expected them to succeed, but now he was taking a precaution. Well, they were dealing with someone that they have never dealt with before. It was merely just to be safe. They could not afford to lose any of their members at this stage. Unknown location. It has so far been quiet, way too quiet for Itachi's liking. Police force operating would keep the borders of the country safe, and enemy shinobi would not dangerously enter their land with evil intentions. If they did so, they would be arrested and persecuted, maybe even just killed on sight. Anything was very much possible when dealing with shinobi matters. Itachi shared Naruto's thoughts on this establishment, and he thought that it was likely to occur. He didn't have to worry about his father's safety because he knew that his father could take care of himself. The Uchiha head was an opponent one wouldn't want to fight alone after all. Even with all his power, he would still not wish to face his father in battle. At least so far things were moving slowly and smoothly. This was something to be happy about. He was enjoying some quiet time for the first time in a long time. It has always been battle after battle before, but now he was relaxed and having to do much more of thinking efforts than fighting enemies who wanted nothing more than to cut him down. Don't get too conformable, Itachi Fugaku said, walking towards his son, who was sitting on a small chair under the shade of a tree. Their entire surrounding was fixed with large green trees. It was a good place to host the base of operations. You never know when the enemy will strike. History has proved that repeatedly, Itachi responded calmly. But with the surveillance there is around this location and the borders, it is unlikely that enemy will hit us from behind without us knowing anything about it. We have home ground which gives us time to prepare. Fugaku nodded, but you can never be too careless. If we become arrogant enough to think that because we have Hyugas and their so-called all-seeing eyes then we won't fall to an ambush, we would only reap regrets at the end of the day. We must always be vigilant, these are tough times. The man looked up into the leaves for a moment before continuing. I was expecting Orochimaru to come at us with his teeth bared as soon as we settled. He might be arrogant, but he isn't stupid. Besides, given my last encounter with him, I doubt he will be very keen to come across us in battle so soon. He is plotting. But we are not likely to see him soon, Itachi said. Fugaku did not respond as he chose to work over things inside his head. He had already delegated Inabi with the position of military police force commander inside Konoha, while he oversaw the outside unit. The clan was in a good position politically and with the villagers. The standing with the villagers was something that he was happy about. It was a long-fought battle, but in the end they were reaping the rewards. Some villagers had even bothered to see them out when it was made known to them they would be protecting the village from outside rather than from the inside. The villagers were not ignorant of the truth. They knew there were fireworks happening outside the village. They might not see it, but it was happening, and they could feel it. At least now Minato was forced to come clean about the impending war. The Yondaime had ensured them that they would be protected. Perhaps he would even get a hero's welcome when he does return to Konoha. It won't be soon though. He would not even be attending council meetings, but Mikoto would do so in his stead. When are you due to depart? When mother gets here, Itachi said. She should be arriving here in 3 nights. I informed her it was dangerous, but she said she wanted to see her husband and would not take no. I was forced to divulge the location. Fugaku sighed. It is fine, he said. What are you planning to do with Danzo? Itachi examined his father carefully before he formed his response. If it was up to Naruto's urges, a slow brutal death. But we cannot act now because Naruto said he wanted to gather information about Danzo. We have come to the presumption that although he acts like a cripple, there is more to him than the facade he put up. With how Naruto is about his opponents, he won't make any rash movements. Fugaku nodded. Danzo isn't just some old man after all. There is a reason he has been able to keep power despite everything. But don't do anything reckless, Itachi. I hate that man, and wouldn't hesitate killing him myself if the opportunity presented itself, but I know that the man is slippery as a snake. You must be careful when dealing with him. I will be, father, Itachi said firmly. Well, being careless has never been something he has been accused of doing. Even Naruto turned on the serious mask when dealing with enemy opponents who could prove to be a problem. Father, do you know anything about the Uzumaki's Anbu? Anbu? Fugaku raised an eyebrow. Itachi nodded. I saw one informing Naruto about the incident that involved Danzo discovering about the Kyuubi. Fugaku went silent for a few moments before shaking his head. That is something you will know when you become clan head. That was all that Fugaku could say about the matter. He would not speak of it, not until it was time to pass the torch in Itachi's hands. Have you thought of your own family, Itachi? The young Uchiha blinked at the question from his father. It was unexpected, and had really come out of nowhere. No, Itachi said with a shake of his head. There is a lot to think about and to do to be planning something like that. Fugaku turned away from his son. You should think about it, Itachi. No one lives forever in this world, and with shinobi we can die at any moment. Next month, I may not be alive. That happens. You have grown, there would be nothing wrong if you start preparing yourself. At least, you will know you have something to live for, something you will wish to protect even after the war. Your desire to protect your village and your clan is great, but what will happen when they no longer need your protection? What will you do? With nothing to do, you will become bored of life and will turn stray. Itachi, think, and have another dream that isn't konoha. If you do that, you will enjoy your life. Sasuke needs an example of that. If we do things right, his generation will not have to live this kind of life we are facing. Even your own family will enjoy the peace. But we cannot speak of that family until you make it happen. Itachi stared at the back of his mother for a long minute. Family? Huh? It is important. Naruto is careless as one could possibly be, but when it comes to his family, he turns on his mind. What would be of me without his family? Fugaku paused for a moment as he reflected on his own actions. I don't know if I was a great father to both you and Sasuke, but I think I tried my best. Perhaps I was a little too focused on pushing you towards what I believed, and neglected that above all else, you were my son. Itachi shook his head. You gave me everything I have, father. You were always there. Sasuke might not think so, but it is because you were there for me that I will pass on that to him. I could not have wished for a better father than you. A day later, 2 letters had arrived for May, one from Naruto, and another from the Yondaime Hokage. It was perhaps one of those things that made you think about coincidence that happen in life. Who could have thought that the letters would arrive at the same time even though they were not sent from the same location? What does the letter from the Hokage say? Ao asked the Gode Mizukage with a careful tone. May looked up from the letter and faced her loyal subordinate, staring at him for a long minute. Her stare only managed to make the man uncomfortable. Normally, she would have said something about it, but the letter came with a surprise that shocked her slightly. Dear May, I hope this letter finds you in good health. I should have written to you a while back after my son returned with your message, but there has been a lot that I have had to deal with recently. I have a few things I wish to discuss with you, and I figured that it would be best to speak to you in person. Within the letter, there is one of my special kunai. When you are in good shape to speak, please use it to summon me so that we can speak face to face. Yours. Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage. Ao blinked once and stared at May. It wasn't that strange that the Hokage wanted to speak to his leader. There were matters that couldn't be said over a letter after all. Some things needed to be said in person. So, we are going to host the Yondaime Hokage, the man said calmly. Should I make preparations for his arrival? May shook her head. There is no need, she said with a wave of her hand. Minato wasn't the one who would be seeking anything worthy of his name to welcome him. The Hokage was a humble soul and someone May liked very much. You can go, Ao, I will speak to him alone, May said in a firm tone. Ao didn't try to say anything else, he merely nodded. It wasn't like the Yondaime was an enemy of theirs. He could leave her in the company of that man without any fear. The man had a good record with people, a very different record from his son. As you wish, Mei-sama. Ao bowed slightly and excused himself from the office. Minato looked at Naruto's letter for a moment before taking her eyes towards the three-pronged kunai. It wasn't her first time seeing the kunai. She had seen it before during the Civil War and the things that it made the Yondaime Hokage do. She shook her head and grasped the kunai firmly. Without another thought, Mei flung the kunai towards the center of her office. The Yondaime Hokage did not waste time in appearing within a flash of yellow. Mei raised an eyebrow. That was pretty fast. What if it was someone else summoning you? Minato smiled as he faced the pleasant woman talking to him. It was a delight to see the woman again. Her smile was always something else, but the blonde did not think anything further than that. He was a married man after all, and Kushina would kill him for having weird thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone else to call me, Minato said softly as he walked towards Mai's desk. The woman stood up and outstretched her hand. It's good to see you in good shape, Mizukage-sama, the Yondaime Hokage said as he shook Mai's hand. Mei smiled beautifully as she responded. You seem fine yourself, she said. Please sit, she added. Minato nodded and sat down in front of the desk. You are really different from your son. The only thing you seem to have in common is your good looks. Minato smiled a bit sheepishly. Well, a lot of people do say that. What do you think differentiates us? The Yondaime asked curiously. He knew how he was different from his son, but he just wanted to see if the woman knew both of them well enough. Naruto is silent wind that indifferently wreaks havoc in the lands he sees as enemy. At the same time, he can be an indifferent gentle wind that passes by silently, Mei said. You are a gentleman, a kind-hearted person who cares for those around him. Yet, you can also be a silent storm. That is another thing that we have in common, Minato added with a smile. Yes, that makes two, Mei said. I have a letter from him. Interesting how he is thinking ahead with his project even though the situations around it don't favor it. Naruto does what he wants, and he doesn't allow what is around him to dictate his decisions. Minato said calmly. The Yondaime turned serious as he spoke once again. I actually came here with some difficult news. Mei stared at the man before her for a long minute. I figured as much, she said. Iwa and Kumigakure are plotting to wage war against Konoha. It is going to happen soon. Nothing needs to trigger it. I guess you can even go as far as to say that we are already at war with them. Their attempts to get you into their good books were probably to make sure that you don't get involved, just as Tsunade has chosen to stay neutral. There was never any plan in my part to partake in war, Mei said firmly. This village has only gotten through a bloody war. I cannot afford to have my shinobi experience another one again. At the same time, it feels somehow knowing that I am simply going to allow you to be attacked while I watch and protect my own back. It felt like a betrayal of trust. Minato had sacrificed so much for her to enjoy in the peace she was enjoying right now, but her plan was to watch him face to great villages without any support simply because she was more worried about her own village. One could say she was right to make that choice because it was what was best for Kirigakure, but her conscience was saying something else. You don't have to worry about that, Minato said in a firm tone just to reassure the woman that he was serious about it. Ultimately both of us are cages, and we will make the choices that are good for our villages. Even my actions here were not simply based on doing what was right, but also gaining Konoha a valuable ally. Kirigakure will not gain anything from taking part in the war. You will only suffer more losses. We have suffered our losses, and we will still suffer more losses. Our actions in the past have done nothing to ignite this war. We have been civil. Even so, this will be our fight, and we don't wish to involve you, or anyone who doesn't have anything to do with it. Mei stared at the man. What he was saying was that he would not seek help from any of his allies, but would rather have his village fight its own battles, even if it was against two great villages. If he was not the Yondaime Hokage, Mei would have thought that he was crazy to think of something like that. However, I will require your assistance just in case things don't go according to plan. Also, after the war, We will be heavily exhausted, because we will be defending against two great villages. There is a chance that some of our allies in the form Tsunade and other small villages might turn on us in our weakened state and try to take our power. Mei frowned at the thought. We are living in a very treacherous world, aren't we? You can't really say you have an ally. Friends are willing to stab you in the back without a second thought. The woman shook her head. It is such a sad world that we live in. I really wish that it was different. It can be changed, Minato said firmly. Despite everything that we face, I believe that the elemental nations can still see peace and do away with petty fights. Most certainly wish for a better world, but despite our wishes nothing ever seems to change. Even so, I wish to change things. I just have to survive this war first. Even the famed Yondaime Hokage doesn't think he can survive through anything, Mei said. She was surprised by that. Most people with his power would always think that they could get through anything that they are faced with, arrogance at most, but Minato was too smart for that. No one is invisible, Minato said firmly. I don't know what the Kasuke is thinking, but despite being Konoha's ally, he hasn't been supportive and hasn't shown sign that he will. Suna heavily relies on Konoha for cheap supplies, and I am sure if the chance represented itself for Suna to get one over Konoha in order to secure its survival, he will no doubt take it. You want me to be your last line of defense? Minato shook his head. I will be Konoha's last line of defense. Unlike the previous war, I won't be doing much of fighting in the front lines. Perhaps my presence would end things quickly, I don't know. But the decision is that I will be Konoha's last line of defense. I want you to keep watch, keep your presence, just to tell anyone having funny thoughts that I have his back. Mei tilted her head to the side. Given Kiri's location, she could not do that without having to leave her village, and in terms of being an emergency military partner, she would not be able to reach Konoha quick enough if one of its allies turned its back on the village. You want me personally to make an appearance, Mei said. This will sure scare anyone. I mean, even if Konoha is exhausted from the war, it would not give up with a fight. Anyone attempting anything will first have to fight. Minato nodded. Can you do it? That is all that I request of you. I can do it, Mei said. She didn't think that the man was leading her into a trap that would see an end to her life. The blonde was a bit too honest for something like that. Still, a dangerous person when he wanted to be. I talked about your message with my council, and they had some funny ideas. In any case, we need something that is signed to other nations that you are with Konoha and behind it, Minato said in a firm tone. It was proposed that my son be offered to you. Mei appeared to think about it for a moment before responding. That wouldn't be such a bad thing. He is a rather interesting young man. I can't get my hands on the father, but the son is nothing less of his father, the Mizukage said with a sly smile. Minato cleared his throat. Anyway, Naruto said no to the marriage proposal. Mei frowned. Don't take offense in it, Minato was quick to say with his hands held up. Naruto isn't that interested in women. His excuse was that he was too young to be married, but the reality is that he doesn't even have any thoughts of getting married because of lack of care. I think he is incapable of doing so, the Yondaime said with a sad smile. It must be hard on you as his father, Mei said a bit sympathetically. At times, but he does have his moments. As indifferent as he is still my son, and more than anyone, I know I can count on him on anything. The Yondaime Hokage said confidently. Although Naruto refused, I am going to push for it. This will be just a political marriage, nothing more, nothing less. We will break it after things have stabilized. I cannot ask Naruto to fall in love, that is close to impossible. I understand, Mei said. She didn't sound too happy. This is a small favor I am willing to do for you. Who knows, maybe I will be a good influence on Naruto. Minato smiled. Now, I just have to get Naruto to agree to it. When it was first brought up, he was clear on his refusal, even in the face of other clan heads. Well, they didn't push. Why? This certainly does Konoha some good rather than bad. If Naruto was saying no, why didn't they try to force him? None of the clan heads can do that even if they wanted to. With the Uzumaki, it is mostly their word that goes, even if others don't like it, Minato said. It is far worse with Naruto because he doesn't like being told what to do. Then how are you going to get him to agree to it? Minato smiled, eyes closed. I will get his sister to sweetly ask him to do it. Lightning Country? Along the journey. For some reason, Drea felt it was safe if they followed a certain path when leaving the village hidden in clouds. It was probable that they had been spotted. One could not simply walk into enemy villages, especially in tough times like these. The security within the villages had been increased to keep out spies and the like. Naruto wasn't a spy, but he certainly knew how to hide himself from danger. In this state, he could not afford to be held up in a battle within the cloud. It would not be in his disadvantage and didn't like those kind of situations. He wasn't afraid to run away from them. He has never been ashamed to do a tactical retreat. No one is pursuing us, Drea said, sounding a bit relieved that no one was indeed chasing after them. It wasn't that he would have failed to deal with the danger. The problem was what would happen after dealing with the danger. If he got involved in a scuffle with Kumo Shinobi, it was likely just going to pour fire in the smoke. War was going to happen, but historians would remember it as the war that truly started when Drea of the Sannin infiltrated Kumagakure and was pursued by its shinobi. Surely even some things that never occurred would be added. He didn't want to be remembered like that. He was sure Naruto wouldn't mind. The redhead didn't care about having a good image. Perhaps now it mattered since he was a clan head and had a younger sister he so loved who was looking up to him. There was no doubt that little Karin adored her older brother and looked up to him regardless of what people say about him. You sound as if you have dodged a bullet, Naruto said quietly. If we were really just avoiding Kumo Shinobi, we could have taken a different route. This seems like we are heading towards some destination. Do you mind informing me? I don't like surprises. Drea eyed the redhead curiously before shaking his head. We are heading towards something. While you were sleeping last night, I went out to find out where Ujido had gone to and which direction she would probably take, the Sannin said with a grin. Since you had bothered to come all the way here, I thought it would be a waste if you returned without seeing her. Who told you I was sleeping? Naruto asked calmly, with a raised eyebrow. Drea blinked. He was sure the redhead had been sleeping when he left during night. Had he been fooled? Was it simply because he just saw an unmoving person and the closed eyes and thought perhaps the redhead was sleeping? The Sannin shook his head, clearing his thoughts. We can take a different path if you wish. We won't find Tsunade in these parts of the nations. She is in the Fire Country. Naruto appeared to think about it for a moment before making a decision. Let us, he said. I must get back to Konoha, and I don't fancy dealing with your former teammate, especially since it is going to be a hassle to get her to do what is required. It would certainly be difficult, and the job was made a lot difficult because Minato had requested that they bring her back to Konoha. All this time he has been trying but without any success. Even the time he went to visit her with Naruto, there was no success. What would be different now? The war. She has said that she doesn't care about Konoha, but Drea believed that not to be completely true. You're just going to leave it like that? The Sannin asked. I thought this would be good since you have not shown any interest in women, but for you to take an effort in this one, I thought perhaps there was something. Don't read too much into what I do, you will confuse yourself, Naruto responded calmly. Don't tell me you had an ulterior motive for coming here. I know for certain that you're not the one for scheming, the Sannin said. I was looking for a merchant really, Naruto said. There is a certain man from this village with some good connections on the farming business. You can't simply farm without the people to sell to. I needed the contacts to be able to get into business. I have no discrimination with who I do business with. As long as it benefits the Uzumaki, I will be fine. Besides, by the time my project starts bearing fruits, the war will be over. Who knows, these kind of connections may prove vital in keeping good relations with other villages. Trade agreements can turn into some friendly adventures that benefits even the villages and not just merchants. Drea was slightly shocked that such words had come from Naruto's mouth. He quickly shot down his thoughts and realized who was talking to him. For a moment, I thought you cared about peace, the man said with a shake of his head. In any case, you do have a point. Naruto didn't say anything to the man about the matter. He stopped walking and stared into the trees ahead. Well, this had to happen, he said. We were still going towards the right direction, Drea said. Even though he could not sense who it was, he was sensing some with large chakra coming towards their way. But from Naruto's words, he was guessing that the redhead was sensing Uchiha. The blonde jinchuriki landed in front of the two konoha shinobi from the trees and stared at Naruto with an expressionless face. She didn't take a fighting stance despite facing enemy, she merely stared at Naruto. The redhead smiled, eyes partially opened. It wasn't a big smile that he made, just a small smile. Whether it was honest or not was a question that begged an answer. Uchiha, the Uzumaki said, walking over to the blonde. Uchiha stiffened slightly at his approach, but she quickly hid it and remained impassive as Naruto grew closer. Naruto, the Kumonin said with the redhead just standing inches away from her. She didn't lessen her stare, but rather, just kept her calm. Not even a defensive move or a slight twitch, Naruto noted at looking at the woman. Uchiha shrugged. If you do intend to take me, you'd have a difficult time in doing so. I understand it would do well for Konoha to remove one of Kumo's jinchuriki, but you're not planning for that, are you? Who knows? Naruto said with a slight shrug of his shoulders. I had gone to Kumo looking for you to claim my date. That was our bet, and I believe that I won. As if you would have given me the Hirashing if you had lost the battle, Uchiha said bitterly. The thought of her brutal battle with the redhead didn't give her pleasant thoughts. It infuriated her and pained her. The humiliation had been at large, but no one would mock her now since they know about him. I am an honorable person, Uchiha, the redhead said. I would have given it to you if you had won. In any case, the next time we meet, I shall take you out for a date, even if it is in the middle of a war zone. We can take a break from it to have a bit of fun. Uchiha looked at the redhead as if he was crazy. War wasn't something pleasant. How could he even think of something like that? Did it even mean something to her? Why was he even bothering to look for her after all these times, especially given the looming war? Drea thought perhaps if he allowed this to make something, it would be good for Konoha and Kumo. Uchiha was a highly valued asset of the Cloud, and after the war, if both are still alive, they could use the relationship between the two to form a relationship between their respective villages. That had been the thought, and he liked the idea right now. He would even share it with Minato. It was a good plan that could work out for both Konoha and Kumagakure. Just like that? The blonde asked quietly. I would be doing a great service to my village if I managed to take one of you down. We are going to engage in war, and if I just let you go, the Raikage will be furious with me. Let us go. Naruto sounded mildly amused by Uchiha's statement. You have not captured us, and within this distance it will take a second for me to neutralize you. I got closer for a reason, dear. Uchiha dared the redhead to try. Try it, and we will see if you can succeed. Naruto shook his head. I'm too much of a coward to try that, the redhead said with a lazy wave of his right hand. He turned away from the jinchuriki. Don't forget what I said about our date. Uchiha wasn't just going to let him leave like that. She tried to grab him from behind on his right shoulder, but she was stopped when light flames lit up behind the redhead. Naruto turned slightly, eyes closed. I apologize for that. Ever since a recent event, I do not like people touching me without approval. My flames react unconsciously to defend me. Chapter 18. Kumagakure. Once again, Uchiha was in the presence of the Raikage after an interesting encounter with Naruto. This was the second time she was forced to decide whether she should say or not. Last time she had decided against, but the man had found out about it anyway. This time it could prove to be challenging for her reputation if she kept it a secret. Matters between Konoha and Kumo were not favorable after all. While she had no attachments towards the redhead, she thought it was somehow telling the Raikage about his appearance. The man had said he had come all the way to see here. Uchido shook her head. She was merely flattering herself. It couldn't be that someone as infamous as Naruto would be willing to risk that much just to see her. He had been with Jiraiya the Sannin. There had to be other reasons for his appearance. She wouldn't put it past them to have been looking for information in her home village. The looming war forced everyone to work hard in order to gain information about their enemies. In Kumo's case, the enemy was just Konoha. Uchido closed her eyes for a moment and swallowed all her thoughts. She didn't have to think about anything else. Naruto was surely an interesting person, and despite the fact that she was still a jinchuriki, he was still interested in her. That counted as something. Nevertheless, before anything else, she was a Kumagakure Jonin and her loyalties lay with the village and the Yondaime Raikage. With that in mind, Uchido ushered the words out of her mouth. She had already delivered her mission report, so she could get this over with and leave this place. Raikage-sama, the blonde started in a quiet tone. I came across Naruto on my way back to the village. I did not show any surprise to the revelation, nor did he look overly excited about hearing it. His expression was just mildly flat. He had known that Jiraiya had been in the village. Perhaps he would not have found the man if it wasn't for his tendency to visit the hot springs and peep on women, which often left the man exposed to a beating. He had not known that the man was with Naruto. There hadn't been any sight of the redhead's presence, but after they had left the village, he was informed that Naruto was with the Sannin. I could only assume that the redhead had put on a rather elaborate henge when walking through the village streets to avoid being detected. He hadn't moved against the two because he figured it would have been pointless in doing so. They would not have come into the village without any plan to flee if they were caught. It would have been a problem for him as he hadn't even known about Naruto's presence before it was a little too late. What did he say? He said something about the bet we made during the Chunin exams a few years back. I was supposed to go out with him on a date if I lost the match, Uchido stated calmly. I looked amused. For someone known for his indifference, that is surprising, he said. From our information, Naruto has no friends aside from Uchiha Itachi. He knows people, but he doesn't behave as other people do. That hardly matters anyway. The Raikage paused for a moment. Did he say he would return to the village? Uchido shook her head. No, he was speaking about meeting in the battlefield of the war, she said. A pity, the Yondaime Raikage said, a little disappointed since he won't be able to lay a trap for the redhead again if he were thinking of coming to Uchido once again. I have another mission for you. Uchido did not show her surprise at hearing that. She thought she would be given some time to rest. She had just returned from a mission after all. She may be a jinchuriki, but her mind and body still got tired. Even she needed to rest like any normal person. Of course, she wasn't going to tell that to the cage before her. She would merely nod and accept the mission he had for her. Oloki has informed me that he has acquired the services of the Akatsuki to eliminate the Uchiha clan's head, started calmly. I don't know much about the mercenary group, and that bothers me. Oloki says that they are a very capable group made of S-rank criminals. I want to know more about them. Once we are done with Konoha, we must move after them as well. Why? Do you think I might be planning something? Mercenaries are only after money, but if this group is as powerful as Oloki says it is, I need to know for sure. Who knows, maybe we can also use them. Though what I fear is Oloki using them against us after we are done with Konoha, stated one of his fears. You think he would do that? It is a possibility. Kumo and Iwa don't exactly see eye to eye. We are only working together to defeat a common enemy. Once this is over, we might turn on each other to claim the scalps of war and the throne of the strongest hidden village, the Raikage explained lightly. Well, he did have his own treacherous plans. He would always do what he thought was best for Kumagakure. Oloki may be old, but he was still a crafty old man, and he didn't put it past him to be plotting something as well. What is my mission then? You will go with C into the fire country and observe the Akatsuki deal with the Uchiha. You will not interfere unless the Akatsuki prove to be incompetent. C will make sure you are able to escape the fire country safely. However, when you do try to escape, go through the earth country. You should be safe there and I will organize for a safe passage back to Kumo. Dished out the mission. Konoha. Danzo eyed Itachi idly, with a lot of thoughts going through his head. He had an idea of how to handle the situation before and he had an idea of how it would end. But that was just an idea, nothing concrete. When dealing with the Uchiha, he had learned that it was better to just try things out if he wasn't too sure about how things would go. Itachi wasn't before him because of some motive to kill him. No, he had called the Uchiha to come before him because of a few things they needed to discuss. He had done it before. The Uchiha shared a few of his concerns about Konoha, and the War Hawk used the Uka's love for Konoha to his advantage. When it was about Konoha, they could work together. It wasn't that the Uchiha liked him or anything. If anything, it was like the black-haired tolerated him for the good of Konoha. Danzo was still certain that Itachi wanted him out of power for past actions. The Shizui matter had not settled well the boy and he was certain that something was brewing along with Naruto and his recent actions would expose all those thoughts. What do you want, Danzo? He had been on his way back to the village after leaving his father, and before he could even enter the village, Danzo had his cronies inform him that their master wanted to see him. He had indulged the request, and taken a different route to see the man. Naruto had yet to return to the village, and he was certain that the red had not spoken to Itachi since leaving. That was a good thing for him. He could use it to his advantage. I wish to speak to you about Naruto, the War Hawk started calmly. It is his lack of love towards Konoha that bothers me the most. For someone with his power and position, it is dangerous. I am sure even if you do believe that he will never betray Konoha, you must also be worried about that particular problem. Itachi did not allow his emotions or thoughts to show. If that is what you called me here for, I will take my leave because this is nothing to talk about. Naruto is dangerous, you know that. Yet, he is a valuable asset to Konoha, even I am willing to admit that. But he does not think for Konoha and that could prove to be a potential threat to the village. If he doesn't think about Konoha, he won't think of anything that will benefit the village. For a Konoha shinobi that is unacceptable. Naruto would never do anything to risk Konoha's safety. Itachi said in a firm tone. Make sure you fully believe that so that you don't end up regretting it, Danzo said with narrowed eyes. In any case, has he informed you what really happened with him and my agents? Itachi did not say anything. He did not then. Danzo took a pause and studied the black-haired shinobi for a few moments. I wonder just how much he keeps from you. Should I tell you the deal I offered him? It was tempting. Itachi wanted to know what had happened. Even his father did not seem to know, but Naruto had the time to tell him, yet he did not. He doubted that was something that could simply be pushed as clan secrets. It was something much more than that, and yet the redhead had not informed him, even though they were planning to deal with the War Hawk together. Why? Itachi could not figure it out. Until recently, he had not thought that Naruto was capable of hiding things from him. The redhead has always been frank and often blunt with him. If there was something, he would be blunt about it. But now, things were different and it got him thinking. Even so, Itachi knew Danzo's game here. It was simply to get him to doubt Naruto and break the bond between them. Mistrust could go a long way to ruin even the strongest of bonds. Itachi could not simply afford to doubt Naruto. He believed he had more faith in Naruto more than most people. Perhaps someone who had more faith in Naruto than him was his father. The Yondaime Hokage was not the one to doubt Naruto in cases like this. If Naruto wants me to know, he will tell me, Itachi said in a firm tone. Maybe Danzo said a bit carelessly. Either way, I was planning to inform you. Naruto will possibly lose the use of his left hand because he has been poisoned by a very deadly poison. I have the antidote, but in exchange, I have requested the Kyuubi. Well, I am sure it is too late now. Even if he does get to Tsunade, his hand will be damaged already. He won't give me the QB thereafter. But I am not worried about that. I simply want the Bajor to be used for Konoha's safety. Even though he offered to be a jinchuriki, I know he has no plans to do so. Why don't you motivate him to do it? Itachi raised an eyebrow at the request from the War Hawk. Why would I want to do that? Naruto has no need for the Kyuubi's power, and sealing it in himself would be to simply keep it away from you. There was the issue of pride with the redhead, and his ambitions as well as his attitude would not allow him to use the power. Despite being in Uzumaki, Naruto's body has taken some serious damages due to the amount of strain he has put it under. If he is continuously pushed to his limits at this age, he won't last long. It is likely that his body will simply stop working at its best, Danzo explained. With how he is at the moment, he is basically disabled and won't be able to fight at his full capacity, but with the Kyuubi's power inside him, he can break his bodily limits. The chakra can also help his body keep intact. Outwardly, Itachi maintained an expressionless, but inwardly, he was frowning. Danzo was honestly not far off, and that bothered him. What do you hope to achieve with this, Danzo? I'm sure you still have the idea to control the Kyuubi. Do you perhaps think that Naruto is the perfect jinchuriki for the Biju given his personality, and are planning to control him using Shizui's eye? With that ability, it shouldn't be impossible, even if Naruto is an Uzumaki. I only do what is best for Konoha, Danzo only said that. With Naruto, it had taken a couple of days for the two to finally find Tsunade, one of the Sannin. Naruto was still not really looking forward to meeting the Slug Princess once again. He just didn't have a very high opinion of her. He wasn't the one who went around hating people. There was really one person he could actually say he hated, and that was Danzo. Most people he just disliked. There wasn't a very good reason that was needed for that. It wasn't the kind of a life a person lived for him to make that kind of judgment, it was simply his thoughts. They had found Tsunade drinking along with Shizune. Drea seemed overly happy to see his former teammate again. He was so happy that he had immediately called for a drink before he even sat down across the woman. Naruto looked around the bar with an expressionless mask. When he wasn't in this kind of a place for drinking, he really didn't want to be there. It was the kind of place that called for some demons inside of him to come out and play. The redhead shook off his thoughts and settled down on the space across Tsunade, and her attendant with Drea settling right beside him. Drea, Tsunade said. By that, it was certain she was not yet drunk. It was still early after all. What brought you here? She didn't sound too happy to see the Sannin, something Drea was quick to note. You don't sound too happy to see me, Heim, the Toad Sage stated in a calm tone. Or perhaps you're just having one of those bad days? Tsunade seemed to think for a moment before sighing. She took the bottle before her and placed it in her mouth. It was a long gulp that took several seconds before she placed the bottle down the table. Maybe a bad day, she said calmly. Had to escape a few people looking for their debts, and they wouldn't let me gamble in the casino here. She sounded furious about it. You can't blame them, Shizune was quick to say. Last time you were here, you lost all your money, borrowed a lot of money from the owner, and then ran off after you had lost it. When he tried to retrieve it, you lied about finding a gold mine. It couldn't be helped, Tsunade said, showing no remorse. It has become quite the annoyance going out of the fire country. I have to continuously be on the lookout, because of your stupid war that's about to happen. If someone isn't trying to recruit me, they are trying to kill me. Well, you're not just anybody, Heim, Drea said in a firm tone. Don't they know I just want to live my life normally and have no interest in what is happening in the elemental nations? Tsunade stared at Drea and then at Naruto for a moment. You didn't come here because of the war, right? I figure if Minato wants to bring me back, he would bring his big guns. I don't really care if you return or not, Naruto said, speaking for the first time. But the mission was to have you return to Konoha. To succeed, I wouldn't mind using force to do it. At this time, Your usefulness should be your medical ninjutsu skills. You need your hands. I would be willing to cut off your legs and carry you to Konoha. Tsunade stared for a moment before bursting out in laughter. That's a good one, she said. Jiraiya did not laugh because he was certain that Naruto was serious about cutting off her legs. The redhead was that brutal and wouldn't care. Even if he was talking about crippling a Sannin, he would not care. Tsunade was still a Konoha kunoichi, but that didn't mean anything to Naruto. In any case, I have a medical condition that you must solve, Naruto stated indifferently. I don't do freebies, and who do you think you are telling that must solve your problem? Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto responded calmly. Of course Konoha would be willing to pay you for your efforts, the redhead said as he undid the bandages on his left hand. Tsunade stared at the purple hand that looked as if it was rotting. Her stomach twisted slightly and she faced Naruto head-on. You must be in serious pain, she said. And you're not even flinching. That spoke of a high tolerance of pain. Before, she could not have imagined that his hand was like that. He did not look to be in some discomfort. He had looked perfectly fine. Given the look on Jiraiya's face, she could also assume that the Sannin hadn't known that it was that bad, and it was indeed bad. She did not have to pull out her wand to be able to tell that. What could have happened? He was Minato's son, so she could understand him coming all the way here to get treated even though he didn't seem to care about her or what she did. The redhead didn't even seem to have a high opinion of her. Still, she was still not going to simply do anything because he was Minato's son. She really didn't care either, as he didn't care. She was done with Konoha anyway. The pain is there, Naruto said with a nod. Sometimes it feels like there is a bug that is moving within, taking a bite of my flesh. Even if I have separated it from the rest of my arm, the pain still shoots through my head, the redhead said without even wincing at the thought of the pain he was feeling. Tsunade stared at the hand once more before speaking. You have stopped the poison from spreading through your body, she said. She based that assumption based on his response and what she was seeing. I'm not going to heal you anyway. If your hand has taken that color, I can't reverse it. I might remove the poison, but it has already done its damage. I have come to understand that as well, Naruto said, not looking bothered. But you still have to get rid of the poison. Why? What is in it for me? Tsunade-sama. Shizune was baffled that her master would ask something in return to heal the son of the Yondaime Hokage and also a Konoha shinobi. The redhead was in a delicate situation, even she could tell that. These were not enemies, but actually friendlies from their home village. You can't be serious. Keep out of it, Shizune, Tsunade shouted, a bit harshly. Naruto merely shook his head. Let us make a bet. You beat me, I will get off your back and won't try to force you back to Konoha and will even pay off the debt you have in this town so that you can gamble again. But if I win, you look at my hand and deal with the poison. That sounds fair, doesn't it? I am handicapped here, my left hand won't work. Tsunade was surely going to fall for it, Jiraiya figured. Naruto also had a plan. The redhead didn't like losing a battle after all, and he wasn't the one who went to a fight knowing what to do and how he would deal with it. He had a plan to subdue Tsunade despite his disadvantage. Tsunade grinned. You have a deal, brat. Jiraiya looked at Naruto with a long stare. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Tsunade wasn't someone he would underestimate, even when she was drunk. There is a reason she has been able to roam around the elemental nations without any fear. Not even Danzo dared to try to provoke a fight with her. She still packed the hard punch, he knew that more than anyone. Then again, Naruto wasn't an idiot either. If there was someone who was more cautious in battle, then it was the redhead. Naruto didn't even do sparring sessions unless the situation depended on it. He was the type who would run away from a fight if he was certain he would not win it. It wasn't just with brains on the Uzumaki side, it was also his physical prowess as well. There was no doubt that the redhead was a powerhouse. He has proved that more than the question was asked about his strength. Having seen the redhead train with his father when he was younger, The Sannin could not doubt Naruto's strength, not even when he was handicapped. Naruto didn't respond to Jiraiya because the Sannin was simply asking him a stupid question. He merely stood up from his position and motioned for Tsunade to follow him outside so that they could work out on their deal. He did like making deals anyway. Perhaps he overdid it at times, but doing so gave him the motivation to be able to do what he needed. If it was a fight he had to win, he would fight with both body and spirit in order to win. The extra push to fight on was always needed, and it ensured that he did not end up losing. Everyone went out silently. Tsunade cracked her knuckles. No backing out of this one, Gaki. Naruto didn't react. He just looked around the clear space around him for a moment before motioning for Tsunade to come at him. The slug princess didn't waste time before lunging towards Naruto like a bullet. Her speed slightly surprised the redhead, not that he showed it on his body language or expression. He just watched her for a second before jumping back as the woman flashed in front of him, slightly above ground with her right punch swinging through the air, heading towards the left side of his head. His small jump was enough for him to avoid the blow. The punch just whizzed past his face, hitting him with some bursts of wind. As he landed on the ground, Naruto spoke. "Well, that is just dangerous," he said of the punch. Even he would not be okay after getting a punch like that. Tsunade didn't respond to Naruto, she charged again. Naruto jumped back to avoid her incoming strike. This time, her punch had been going downwards and she ended up slamming the ground after missing her target. There was a boom when her first punch into the ground. The contact created a crater and caused debris to pick around the area the powerful punch hand crashed into. With Naruto just close to her, Tsunade was up again and this time, she raised her right foot high, aiming for a high kick. Naruto once again dodged her strike by jumping back. "This isn't fun. If you're going to just keeping running away, you will only annoy me," the slug princess said with a small frown on her lips. It had been just 3 times, but she did not have the patience for any more. Perhaps it was because he was the one who suggested it. "Apologies, I was looking at something else," Naruto said with a small smile. Tsunade did not respond in words, she just charged towards the redhead once again. This time Naruto did not seem like he was going to jump back. He just stood still as Tsunade's punch traveled through the air, rushing towards his face. In a split second, Naruto sidestepped the punch, moving slightly to the left, and then took a single step forward to get closer to Tsunade. He held up the woman by placing his right hand on her chest, and then moving his head closer. He did something unspeakable that had Jiraiya screaming the fuck. The redhead kissed Tsunade on the lips. Enough seconds passed for Naruto to wrap the slug princess with his chakra chains. His hold on the woman was by no means gentle. He was seriously strangling and suffocating her as the chain suppressed her chakra. Tsunade glared at Naruto murderously. The redhead merely smiled, eyes opened slightly. "I thought something like that might catch you off guard. I apologize for being rough and the lack of emotion in it. My heart is a little cold for emotions to be expressed when I'm not drunk." Tsunade didn't know whether to think about the kiss or just try to get out of the chains. She could not disagree with what he said though. Even though she wasn't giving it much of a thought, there had been no emotion on it, it was just a cold kiss. Was it supposed to be like that? She would not know, it had been quite some time after all. The slug princess shook her head slightly and looked around her body. She could feel her chakra leaving her control. Well, she was dealing with an Uzumaki, she should have expected the chains to come with this effect. Still, the redhead had won their bet, so why was he still not letting her go? Depending on what he would be saying, Tsunade had no plans to attack him again. He was still Uzumaki Naruto, and despite not taking part in the Elemental Nations fights, she has been hearing about things. Shinobi did come after her after all, and she was always in bars, hearing people painting horrible pictures about the redhead. But looking at him, Tsunade could not say that he was as harmful as people painted him as. But of course Tsunade knew firsthand that appearances could be deceiving. "Are you going to let me go or not?" Tsunade questioned in a barely audible tone. Naruto shook his head, expression just blank. My father wishes for you to return to Konoha, and since Drea has been failing to convince you to do it, I don't think I will succeed. I don't even have the reasons to give you so that you can return to the leaf, the redhead said in a calm tone. As such, I have decided it would be much easier if I drained your chakra and sealed the little you have left, and then carry you back to Konoha by force. Tsunade snarled. You can't be serious, Naruto. Drea stated in a hardened tone. This is still Tsunade. You cannot treat her like this. I don't even think that your father gave you such an order. If Tsunade wants to go back to Konoha, she will do so in her free will. You cannot force her to do so. Naruto turned to face the Toad Sage with his eyes barely opened. Drea was annoying sometimes. Naruto didn't always agree with the way the man thought. No, there were a lot of things in which he did not go eye to eye with the man. Even now, he was still wishing for Tsunade to be pampered even after abandoning her village. If it had been someone who had done so, they would have been branded a traitor. Tsunade got the special treatment because of her service to the village, her ranking, as well as the fact that she is the Shodai's granddaughter. He should have known that the man wouldn't agree with this. Well, he went better by not communicating it with the Sannin anyway. There was nothing Drea could do now. Naruto could take Tsunade and run off towards Konoha. His left hand did not affect his mobility, and so he could do just fine. The Uzumaki head turned back to Tsunade with his cocks to the side. Are you willing to go back to Konoha if I ask nicely? Tsunade had to wonder if he was being sarcastic, or just joking, but the redhead was dead serious. The blonde gave a flat response thereafter. No. Pity. Naruto seemed to think for a few seconds before waving his right hand nonchalantly. The Yondaime Hokage didn't give me a mission to ask you if you wanted to return to Konoha. Either by force or by free will, the end result is that you get back to Konoha. I don't have the patience or the desire to explain things to you, and thus you must be forced. Tsunade glared at the redhead. When you free me, I will smash you into pieces along with your father. She threatened. Still, do you think taking me back to Konoha by force will work? Let me get this straight, I don't care for what you will do after reaching Konoha. I just have to take you back. If you decide to flee, I won't chase because it won't be my job, Naruto said. Besides, I need you at Konoha to deal with my hand before worms start to sneak up on it. That was the last thing Tsunade heard from Naruto before the redhead snapped his fingers. The chains tightened the hold on her body, before she was hit by something painful that tore through her body. She didn't get to scream as her eyes were forced to close and her body too shut down. Drea and Shizune rushed towards Tsunade after Naruto dispersed his chains in a careless manner. The two stopped the blonde from hitting the ground. The Toad Sage glared at Naruto. I know you're brutal, but this isn't nice. Naruto shrugged. That woman isn't a 5-year-old who has run away from home. She is a grown woman who cannot deal with her fears and feelings towards Konoha. At this point, the village needs her, and if she cannot recognize that, then she is as good as dead. Shizune didn't care about all that at the moment, although she did note that the redhead did have a point. What did you do to her? She isn't knocked out. From what I can tell, she is still conscious and she can hear us. Nothing bad. Tsunade is an expert in her area. If I had forced her to sleep, she would have woken up before I could even start packing her things so that we can leave, Naruto explained lightly. She can hear you for now at least. In a couple of minutes, she will be dead. Konoha. Minato frowned looking at the scene before him. Drea had appeared in the office, carrying Tsunade. There was also a black-haired woman with the two. He recognized her as Shizune. What did Naruto do? The Yondaime Hokage asked quietly. The only reason the woman would be knocked out is if Naruto did something to her. Tsunade would have no doubt tried to get out of returning to Konoha, and his son wasn't the one who would try to beg her to return, even though he needed her help. Well, he would be lying if he said he didn't think things would go this way. If he had sent Drea, Tsunade would not have returned to Konoha. She was home now, and he could do damage control. He was not nice at times, was he? Knocked her out with a seal. I can't seem to undo it though. Jiraiya responded calmly. Special Fuinjutsu? Minato said with a shrug, not the least surprised that the Sannin could not undo the seal Naruto had placed on Tsunade. It had nothing to do with the mastery of the art, it was just that the Uzumaki didn't like making things that could be undone by just anyone not from their clan. Where is he? Minato asked after a pause. Disappeared off to somewhere. Said it would be troublesome if Tsunade woke up with him in the room, Jiraiya said, still a little worried about his former teammate. Well, he could imagine Tsunade raising hell as soon as she does wake up. The blonde Sannin had a temper of her own. He did wonder how Naruto would work with the woman though. On his day, the redhead wasn't the one for nonsense. It was especially a problem now since he was at a delicate stage in his life. Once again, Minato sighed. Why can't I undo the seal? Jiraiya asked. Almost all seals used by Naruto in special cases require a key. For Naruto, developing something complex that someone can't undo is hard work and maybe beyond him. He just creates a normal seal that requires a special key. Despite being normal, the seals really can't be undone even if you do understand one, Minato explained lightly. He got up from his chair and walked towards the two, slowly. He knelt down beside Tsunade and placed his index finger on her forehead, channeling chakra. Multiple seals flashed all over the blonde. I don't have the key for this one. We'll have to get either Izumi or his mother to get. The blonde cage trailed off when Naruto appeared in the office in flames. I was going to have someone call you. It had slipped my mind that no one else has the key to the seal, the redhead stated calmly as he knelt beside his father. A single touch to the forehead and the marks on Tsunade's forehead disappeared. A couple of seconds later, the woman started stirring slowly before her eyes snapped open. Naruto moved away from the woman along with his father, who returned to his chair, wearing a rather serious look on his face. The redhead moved behind his father, as he did not wish to face an angry woman. Shizune quickly went down by her master's side. She helped the woman stand up. Tsunade rubbed her aching head slowly as she straightened herself. This kind of a forced sleep was never good for anyone who wasn't a medic nin. A medically induced sleep was okay, but this wasn't fine. The redhead had just forced her mind into sleep in a violent way, hence the headache. The blonde Sannin looked around the room and stopped dead when she came across Naruto, who was standing behind the Yondaime Hokage. She had been forced back to Konoha. She didn't like it one bit. Still, the fact that she was back in the leaf wasn't the second thing that made her furious. The first was the redhead in the room. Tsunade's killing intent leaked through the room into frightening levels. It only made Shizune uncomfortable, but the three males present in the room were not frightened of it. Minato smiled at Tsunade. It was a bit of a weak smile. It is really nice to see you alive and well once again, Tsunade-sama. It has been quite some time since I last saw you, the blonde Hokage stated calmly. Tsunade didn't respond to Minato, her eyes stayed fixed on Naruto before she disappeared in a blur. The Yondaime Hokage reacted quickly to get out of the way as he didn't have to worry about Naruto, and it was best to just allow Tsunade to let out some steam before they talked. The wall behind Minato's desk cracked as Naruto crashed into it on his back with his back. Tsunade was just in front of him with her right fist poised against his chest, but Naruto had caught the punch with his right hand, protected by wind chakra. The force of the punch had been a little too much for him to take it and stay still. Despite being surprised that he had actually caught her punch, Tsunade went on the attack again. She threw a left punch towards his face knowing that he could not use his left hand. Naruto's response was fast, he cocked his head to the side, allowing Tsunade's punch to hit the wall. The wall was shattered by the powerful fist. When Tsunade looked into Naruto's eyes, she found this partially opened eye staring at her with slight indifference, and a warning that clearly said that he wouldn't be against fighting back if she wanted to do bodily harm. This wasn't Jiraiya who wouldn't fight back. Tsunade would have tried once more, but those indifferent cold eyes shut off any thought. She stepped away from the redhead and walked back to the front of Minato's desk before settling down on a chair. She folded her hands across her chest, wearing an expressionless mask. Her eyes stared at the Yondaime Hokage, just wondering how possible it was that Naruto was the son of the man sitting behind the desk. Tsunade didn't waste time in delivering her thoughts. She couldn't help it as she couldn't come up with a reason that satisfied her curiosity. How is that thing your son, Minato? He is a complete opposite of the kind of person you are, Tsunade asked, her tone firm. There was a saying like father like son. The phrase didn't apply in this picture. The only reason Tsunade could give that could explain that Naruto was Minato's son was that he looked like the Yondaime Hokage. In character, he was nothing like the famed Hokage. Minato replied with a smile, I get that a lot, he said. But I would appreciate it if you didn't call him a thing. Despite everything, Naruto is my son, and I appreciate him as he is. He is still a person after all. It was apparent that character meant nothing to compare family, but blood ties were the foundation. Tsunade knew Minato, but she hadn't expected him to defend her son like that, especially in front of her. Shouldn't she be allowed to say whatever she wanted about the person who sealed off her chakra and then knocked her out before dragging her back to the village she didn't want to see? Did Minato not care if it would only serve to infuriate her further if he talked like that? Tsunade shook her head, dismissing her thoughts. She did not respond to Minato's humble request. That was something nasty to do someone who you need to help you. You've adapted well to the idea of not using your left hand, but I can see that it is a problem that needs to be solved. Naruto didn't step away from the broken wall when he responded. He said, looking at Shizune, can do it. I figured if she has been with you since you left Konoha, she must have been learning medical ninjutsu all these time. With a sensei such as yourself, there should be something she can do. You're not only a cold-hearted killer, but you also have brains, Tsunade muttered in thought. She paused, watching Naruto's face, but there was no reaction from him. He hadn't even reacted when she had called him a thing. A normal person would have been offended. But those eyes were not the eyes of a normal person, were they? In response to Naruto's statement, Tsunade spoke once more. There is something that she can possibly do, the blonde stated calmly. My thoughts, Naruto said before twisting around. Without a word, he was gone in a burst of flames. Can you help him though? Minato was quick to ask the slug princess in a serious tone. Tsunade carefully studied Minato's expression before she responded. Yes, she said. I think his muscles are damaged to the point where he can't move his hand freely. It's possible that the poison also damaged the chakra system on his hand. I'm afraid if that is proved to be correct, there will be nothing I can do about it. Minato fell silent for a few moments before responding. At least he can regain the use of his hand, he said, sounding a little relieved. What happened to him? Tsunade asked curiously. A poison that dangerous surely came from someone who wanted him to suffer, or just kill him in the cruelest way. She imagined if the poison had spread to the rest of his body, it would have done some critical damages to all the vital body parts. Danzo's goons, Drea was quick to say. Although Naruto won't say, I suspect Danzo used the poison as a bargaining chip to get Naruto to give him the Kyuubi in exchange for an antidote. Tsunade didn't sound surprised at all. I see he is still up to his old tricks, the blonde said in distaste. Why aren't you doing anything? Naruto has some sort of a plan to deal with the situation, but I have warned him against doing anything that will cause too much problems. Tsunade snorted. From what I have seen from him, I don't think you have any reason to be comfortable, even if you said that. She paused for a moment. Are you perhaps just afraid of issuing the order for Danzo's death even though you know he is a dirty old man? Perhaps, Minato sighed as he leaned back to his chair. There are some things that I am unwilling to do, even though I have become accustomed to the job. Danzo would not simply lie low if I ordered his execution. Maybe I am content with allowing Naruto to handle it, because I don't want to dirty my hands. Maybe, but regardless, every choice Naruto makes will still be on my head. Tsunade just shook her head before standing up. I need a strong drink, Drea, the woman stated, staring at the toad sage. And a lot of food to eat. I know a good place, Drea said with a smile. Maybe later we will go see Sensei. I'm sure he will be excited to see you again, as the villagers will be when they see you. Thought he'd be dead by now. Tsunade said of the Sandaime Hokage. Drea blinked, wondering if the slug princess was making a joke or being serious. He could not tell from her expression, and in the end, he just shrugged. We will talk the important details after she has rested enough. Maybe tomorrow. Minato nodded. He had no problem. The woman was in the village, and he believed that it was best to allow her to get some fresh air. Perhaps the atmosphere might change her mind about coming back to the village. Get your son to a room before the day ends, and I will have a thorough look into his hand, the woman stated before turning around to leave. I will get it prepared, Minato said with a smile. Uzumaki compound. Azumi stared at Naruto's naked back for a long minute. She was standing behind her clan head, inside his room within the main house. She wanted to put on a formal crimson haori on him as he had a meeting with Hayashi. It wasn't that he couldn't put it on himself, he could. She had just grown used to it that she didn't mind doing it even now. The redhead shook her head before going on with her duties. When does Hayashi arrive? Azumi finished what she was doing before offering a response. In about an hour. He won't be late, you know how the Hyuga are. She stopped talking and walked up to his front, checking if everything was fine. When she was satisfied, she spoke again. You think he is running late, or planning to go somewhere? I wanted to visit the dead people, or at least what remains of them. But it can wait. Azumi cocked her head, a habit she blamed on Naruto. He had been the one to do it every day. It was like his reaction to things, as his face would not reveal anything. You can call it by its proper name, you know. Do you even talk your sister like that? Of course not, a child should be allowed to live out her innocence. Though, I would prefer it if she never loses hers. He paused and looked at Azumi with a curious light in his eyes before shutting them as he continued. How is she coming along with her studies and everything? For a moment, Azumi watched as Naruto turned away from her and headed towards the exit of his room. She then followed him behind as he hit the passage, heading to his little meeting room. Okay, I guess. She doesn't like studying. She prefers to play, but she does get good grades, most probably because she wants to be better than Sasuke. When the Uchiha does well, his brother looks good. When Karin looks bad, you look bad. Well, that is as far as I can tell anyway. Well, she does love her brother, Naruto said. I never liked being second to the Uchiha anyway. Though, I was too afraid to face him in a fight to determine who the best between the two of us. Uzumaki Naruto afraid. Azumi wore a shocked expression on her face, maybe a little dramatic, but the situation called for it. She was genuinely surprised after all. That is something I'm hearing for the first time. Naruto did not respond. He allowed his feet to carry him towards the meeting room before settling down. Azumi sat down beside him. It was time to wait for Hayashi to arrive in the place. He would be led here, so it was no problem. The man had been here before anyway. He didn't need a guard. I was afraid of losing. Itachi is powerful, smart, so is his father. I would not face them unless I was forced to. Fighting Itachi not knowing if I'd win would really not put me in a good mood to fight. If I had lost, what would happen? I'm certain I would have lost my will to fight, Naruto said calmly. You can do your very best thinking you're winning a battle, hitting the enemy with everything, but soon realize that it was all just genjutsu and you find yourself staring at those cold eyes. For someone who has spent years of training, how would that feel? Well, he has trained his eyes to stay away from the Sharingan. Nato guy knew best, but he had learned a few tricks. Of course that wasn't all. The Uzumaki had made a genjutsu canceling seal. The seal wasn't meant to make him immune to genjutsu, it just meant that it would be able to quickly detect it and flush away the foreign chakra inside his system. Azumi shook her head. Defeat is death, huh? It was a rhetoric question. You don't fight unless you are certain you can win. That is something, but it also gives you a chance to survive. You won't do anything reckless, but you still need to better your fighting style. You're a lot bloodier, and it makes you appear as bloodthirsty. Some people don't even want to be in the same battlefield with you even though they are allies. Naruto seemed to think about it for a moment before responding. Well, it does have an effect on the clan's image, and regardless of how I look at it, I can't deny that when people look at me, they look at the Uzumaki clan, because that is what I represent, the redhead said. My current predicament won't allow me to be reckless, I have to fight smart. I look forward to that change, Izumi said with a smile. Naruto opened his right eye and turned to Izumi. Have you thought of getting married and starting something of a family? Izumi raised an eyebrow in curiosity, but she masked her face with impassiveness. Why do you ask, Naruto? You're older than me, and the other day I had clan heads trying to push a marriage before me. I can be forced into marriage. If you like someone, don't hesitate to make something of it. Even if that person isn't from the clan. While we'd like to preserve the blood, I can't stand in the way of your happiness. That is very nice of you, Naruto-sama, but do you really think that you can survive without me? She doesn't just put on his clothes when he was going to formal functions, she also washed his back at times. She had seen him nude more than twice in just this year. Would any husband tolerate something like that if he knew how she worked around Naruto? I don't know, I haven't given it much of a thought, Naruto said with a slight shrug. Then do you like someone? If you want me to arrange something for you, I can. Izumi shook her head. A man would be afraid to refuse that offer because he fears you. Simultaneously, he would be afraid get in the boat, because if it sinks you will be waiting for him in the depths of the water with an axe. You make it sound as if I am this evil person who kills everyone that wrongs me. Izumi did not respond to the accusation. I was actually brought to your house so that I can be married to the next clan head. They wanted an Uzumaki wife for the clan head. I was brought in by Yoshino to know you better, and try to shape you up when your ignorance became apparent. Naruto faced the woman, but said nothing. I never attended the academy, Naruto, but I knew a lot of things. I don't have parents, but I'm educated. When you were still at the academy, I lectured you at home and was already proficient with seals. How do you think I got good? Naruto didn't look at the woman when he responded. That cynical old woman. Let me guess, while I was playing tag at the academy, you were busy being taught all you needed to know. How is it going with our academy anyway? Working well, we should finish building soon and then by next year, start enrolling everyone who can afford it. Anyone who can afford it, huh? Yes, everything has a price and the clan does enough charity work. Everything with quality is priced, and if we cannot do this, we hurt ourselves. Those who can afford it will pay. The clan children will no longer follow the formality of attending the village's shinobi academy for mere formalities. They will go somewhere their children can be taught useful things. Let us just hope the process goes well. I think you will be good with children, you can be the headmaster. I will try to gather money for things to go smoothly. Last time I checked our balances, we weren't looking too good, especially now since I'm pulling money for the other project in Uzu. It is nothing suicidal so far, but everything must start producing fruit soon, or we will be in trouble. You will have to do a lot of S-rank missions just to keep our orphanage running and support our other activities that the village doesn't pay us to do. They do cost us, Naruto said. Why did we even start the activity? We are not known for this kind of thing. Secrecy, yes, but not that. After the Second Shinobi World War, they thought, if we had known about it, if Konoha had known measures to prevent the disaster would have been taken, and many of us wouldn't have been killed. We came here to Konoha, the strongest village. What if they start thinking we will share the things that made us powerful with Konoha and just make the village a lot stronger? What will happen? What if they plan something again, and again Konoha fails to notice it? Paranoia may have settled in and the geezers started living in fear. Perhaps it had been naive to live so closed off to the world around them, and now they were living within it. They could not afford not to know. They had to know. They realized they could blind the Hyuga and the Sharingan, they could hide from sensors using seals, they could hide, they could spy, and the plan was formed. Of course it didn't last long before rumors started flying around and the Uchiha found something. the Nara speculated until a meeting was called and Yoshino was forced to tell. They were forced to allow us to operate the barrier around the village ourselves and other surveillance means. Anbu and police force would still do their jobs, but the former didn't like it as they thought we were taking their jobs, so we never worked with them. But still, we don't do anything evil. We just buy, search, collect and store. You know so much, I think I should start cutting you off. Azumi shook her head. I told you I was trained to be your wife. That ship sailed after some time though. Your mother said no to anything that would be forced on you, and said that you would make your own choice as she had made hers. But still, I don't know anything. I don't know where we store and the what. Do you want to be my wife, Izumi? I don't know about love, but you I have known all my life. If you wanted, I'd marry you. Why? I've seen you naked, and you have seen me naked, and I have stood with you in your shower, but nothing ever happened. I thought I was like a sister to you. You can never be my sister, I have one sister and her name is Karin. Naruto's tone was firm. I just have better self-control, and wouldn't want to violate you. Besides, I care too much for you. If I tried something, you wouldn't refuse just because it is me. It wouldn't dwell well with my conscience. There was the general lack of interest. Then what is it going to be? Before Izumi could respond, Hayashi walked in the room. I thought you'd refuse to meet me since you just returned to the village, Hayashi said as he settled down in front of Naruto. I also have reason to see you, Naruto responded with a small shrug. Besides, I still need to give you what you need after the study of caged bird seal. Hayashi looked at Izumi for a moment. Last time he spoke to the redhead, the woman was with him. If it was anyone else, he would have refused to speak with some else present. Nevertheless, as far as he could remember, the woman has always been beside Naruto's side before he even went to the academy. Still, is she going to be present in all our meetings? When she is needed, yes, Naruto responded calmly. I don't have to explain things to her when I give her a task. You have your counsels as well, and you share with them what you have discussed with me when I am not there. With her presence here, I don't mix your words. Hayashi said nothing in response to Naruto's statement. He went back to his reason for his visit. Have you made good progress? Naruto nodded. All done, he said and looked at Hayashi strangely. Your clan made a rather sinister seal. You're still one family and yet, because one was born before the other one has to be branded, and forced to wear the mark of a slave. Slave. We have not made the branch family slaves. That is just how I look at it, Naruto said firmly. If someone from the branch misbehaves, you can make them behave by using the seal. They are forced to be servants of the main branch, and do not have the same rights simply because you were born first. Again, that is just how I see it. It doesn't matter to me. I have my own clan to worry about. Hayashi was silent for a few moments before speaking. Were you able to make good progress? Naruto said nothing. He motioned for Izumi to speak. Because the seal is connected to the nervous system, it will make it difficult to remove it, but not impossible. There will be a lot of pain. For those who have been exposed to the seal's other abilities, it might be even worse. The seal can be removed and replaced with a new invisible seal that will still protect the Byakugan. If you want those abilities to be put in, we can add them. As the one for the main family, we have completed it. The principle is the same, it is not visible not even to the Byakugan, unless it is triggered to activate. Hayashi absorbed it all silently before responding. I will have to speak to the elders about the first seal, but the second seal sounds fine. The main family can also be at risk, and we cannot always depend on the branch family for protection. The man paused for a moment. We never spoke about the billing. I wanted to charge you heavily, Naruto said before sighing, but my mother insisted that I do not do so for something that will cause a good change in the Hyuga clan. I need you to do me a favor. The redhead said as he removed the bandages on his left hand. Look into my hand, and tell me what you see. Hayashi didn't need to be told twice. He activated the Byakugan. The first thought wasn't to look into Naruto's hand, but to look around the room and see if he could see anything. Unsurprisingly, his eyes could not see further from the walls. They were protected by a barrier, just like the one around the compound. The Hyuga clan focused on Naruto. He was smiling slightly as if he had noticed that his eyes had wandered off. He did not focus on it, but rather checked Naruto's hand. His eyes widened slightly as he deactivated the Byakugan. Your chakra system in your hand is badly damaged. I don't think it is something that can be healed, Hayashi said before adding. There is also something blocking chakra from flowing into your hand. Not a bad thing. If you allowed it, it would just leak out of the damaged pathway, making it slightly uncontrollable. I guess you can't perform two hand signs from now on. Naruto did not respond to what Hayashi was saying. You will keep your mouth shut about this. If you say a word to anyone, I will know, and don't ask questions. This is the price you pay for the work my clan is doing for you. The redhead then stood up. I'm going out, he said to Uzumi. See our guest out. Forest of Death. A root Anbu appeared before Naruto, who was sitting under a tree in a meditative position. He stepped closer to the redhead before speaking. Uzumaki, Naruto, Danzo-sama wishes to speak to you. A few seconds passed before Naruto opened his left eye for a moment before closing it again. He was being disturbed from his quiet time. He needed time to relax his body and clear his thoughts, and he didn't this kind of a disturbance. Didn't the Anbu even note that Itachi was sitting calmly on a tree branch on his 9? What for? You will know when you get there, the Anbu responded flatly. Naruto slowly stood up before closing the distance between him and the knee agent. I don't like your tone, but if it is Danzo who wishes to see me, take me away. The man didn't respond in words. He merely held out his right hand as to make contact with the redhead. But before he could touch Naruto's shoulder, the redhead caught the hand with an iron grip. On another thought, no, I do not dance to Danzo's tune. Having said that, the root Anbu burst into crimson flames. There was not even a shout of pain before the man disappeared from the view. Naruto sighed before settling down once more. How was your father? Fine, Itachi said as he appeared on the tree Naruto sat under. I thought Danzo wouldn't be coming after you by now, but this isn't surprising. Still, I thought by now you would have made plans to remove him. You had said you wanted to do it after what he did. I have decided against it, Naruto said. If I take action, it will be because of vengeance. I'd rather not expose myself to the thrill of exacting revenge. The feeling can be quite addictive, and you lose yourself quickly. To say Itachi was shocked that someone with questionable moral values and a person who has admitted to struggling with insanity could say something like that was a massive understatement. He was honestly baffled. It was a good thing nevertheless. Although I told a few people that you would make the rational choice, I had a few doubts of my own. Your father had no doubts. He said he was leaving everything to you and has never questioned you about what you will do, Itachi said. Was it Danzo, your father, and who else? Naruto shook his head. It matters not. What are you planning now? I'm buying information on Danzo and everything illegal thing he has done, and then I will hand it over to the police force as well as the Hokage. A public execution for Danzo would be much more worthy than him dying in the confines of his beloved bases. Unknown location. Fugaku-sama. A man rushed up to the commander, who was sitting in silence with his wife. What is it? Fugaku demanded with narrowed eyes. We have spotted the red clouds coming our way. There are 4 of them. Fugaku stood up. Gather everyone else in the safe house. Have the scouts send a message to Konoha. I want reinforcements. All leaders are to move with me to engage the enemy. Hi, sir. Fugaku looked at Mikoto. I'm sorry, but I have to go. Join everyone else in the safe house. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video, as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out the other playlist. Hope you would like them too.